2. Okay.
Welcome, everyone. On behalf of the Open Center, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Born out of the heart of New York City in 1984, the Open Center is the longest running urban holistic center in the country. There's a lot of wonderful events you can check out on the website. Tonight, we are here for the Astrological Predictions for 2021, a year of new beginnings, with Alan Steinfeld and special guests. Alan Steinfeld is the host and producer of the long-running television program where he keeps track of the leading trends in spirituality, the arts, and social history. I will now hand it over to Alan.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Amy. It's great to be back at the Open Center in one way or the other. That's weird. My third eye keeps popping in and out like that. This is the 4th year we are doing this predictions for the new year, and it's always very exciting. Last year, we got some pretty good hits. We got some pretty close approximations of the year that we just experienced. I'm going to get rid of this background. It's like distracting my awareness. It's blocking my third eye. All right, even though it's a little, anyway. So last year was quite an amazing panel, and of course, quite an amazing year that looks like it's still in process. So I have some very exciting people tonight. I have people that are returning, some of my favorite people, and some new people. I'll just do a quick introduction. Then I'll do a little intro, little commercial for myself, and then we'll start. But we have a really great crowd tonight, and this panel is a forecast. You know, take what you hear tonight and, you know, use it at your own discretion. But these are people who are trained to look at the future, forecast. This astrology is the second oldest profession, I would say, and visionary views of what's coming. I mean, nobody exactly knows, but this will be a map. I think it is, because you can't argue with the stars. You can interpret it your own way, but what is coming is set in a pattern, and it's up to us to being able to read the stars or read the future or read what's around the corner. It's like seasons in the year. There are seasons, and we are in cycles, and this is a big cycle. So that's my understanding of how anyone can really know the patterns of the future. I'll just, as I see them on screen, I'll just introduce some of the people that will be talking to us tonight. Right at the top of the screen for me is William Stickevers. Let's give William a hand. William had a really good year last year, and on the panel, he got a pretty good hit. What I remember, he was saying there was an X event coming out of China. We don't know what it is, but it's going to change the world as we know it. That's what I remember about that. Was that true, William? Is that something like that? You want? Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Hi, Alan.
Hi.
Thanks for having me back again on
Right.
hosting this show as a guest. Yeah. So basically, I talked about an X event. We're gonna talk about. I said that a global crisis would commence in 2020.
Mhm.
It would emanate outside of the United States, and then it would trigger a cascading set of black swan events that would continue to escalate and intensify well into 2025. And the tipping point year is 2021. So
okay, don't give us all now, but we'll come
I'm
back to that.
just laying out what I did say. That's what I did say.
Yeah, and that was great. Okay, then we have my good friend Jenny Lynch, who's probably one of my oldest long-term friend, not oldest, but my most long-term friend in New York. Wait, unmute yourself, Jenny. And you did pretty good last year too, and you had some predictions. Do you remember what you said about 2020?
Well, the main thing was the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. That's what we focused on, and using the astrocartography of the winter solstice chart for 2019, Gary, who does Uranian astrology, basically determined it would take place in Seattle. Now, we thought it would be a tsunami. We looked at it. We said, okay, they'll call the troops out. You know, we have to have the National Guard. There's a lot of people dying, but we really did think it was a tsunami. And yes, it's hard to always see exactly what it is, but you get this idea of the timing and the quality of what's going to take place, right?
Right. Okay, we're going to go deeper into that. And then I'll just go down the screen here. We have Julian Michaels, longtime friend. He is not an astrologer, but he is a numerologist, which I think is another way of interpreting what's coming. What did you say about 2020, Julian?
I said that it's important to share and have a relationship, not only with people, but with those 2 zeros. And those 2 zeros is the energy of not only infinity, but it's looking into the windows of your soul. So it all depends if you come from a positive place, and then you're seeing positivity, victory in your life. And if you're seeing negativity, then you're going to have all kinds of stuff going on with you, because it's a launching point of you having vision.
Okay, great. So that's sort of a good recipe for what we've been through. I'll come back to Sergio because he will be the first person who will share. I'll talk to Judy Vitali. Yes, you are a hypnotherapist. I mean, you got recommended by Jenny, who I trust as an astrologer and a friend. So what can you tell us about yourself, and what did you think about last year?
Well, last year, I just knew that something really crazy was coming. I'd been noticing everything that was going on for the past 10 years and looking at the ephemeris and the planetary phenomena book and going like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? I had no idea what it would be, but there it was.
What was the configuration that cued you into something strange happening?
It's the Saturn-Pluto conjunction.
Uh-huh.
And then also the fact that the United States is having its Pluto return in 2022.
Oh.
And so that is humongous for our nation. And it's going, I just figured, Lord knows what's going to happen. And I think that there's more to come. So we can discuss that.
We're going to discuss 2021. That's why we're all here, because we know what just happened. I mean, yeah. 2020 is hindsight, right?
Those are the major things. And
right.
Of course, there was also the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction
right.
that we had in December. And to have that on the winter solstice and right after an eclipse, it was kind of weird.
Great. And Jenny, you want to introduce Mitch?
Sure. I've known Mitchell for a long time.
Mitchell Lewis. Yeah.
Yes, actually, Mitch was staying with me when 9/11 happened, and he paced the floor for weeks before. He said, they're going to bomb us. We were like, wow, he really called it. So Mitch has been a professional astrologer in New York for more than 30 years, specializing in financial astrology and medical, chart interpretation, as well as relationships, elective. He does it all. And actually, he's been doing it since he's a young guy, but he's also a remarkable musician, pianist, and songwriter, singer. He worked he took me down to the commodities, to the cotton, where they trade the cotton in the old days. So he used to work with the traders down on Wall Street at the Mercantile Exchange. And he is very into stock market and stocks and trading, right? We could say also he's the author of the Starlight Detective Mystery Series, which highlights an astrologer detective, David Lowell, and he features New York City as a background. So he's got all of that going on too. And he has a really great monthly newsletter that he puts out. And, occasionally he's on the television and on the radio and coast to coast and other places.
Okay. Thank you for being here, Mitch. Anything you want to say about what last year?
Well, first I have to send Jenny a check for that wonderful introduction. Well, Alan, most of us in this business have been conscious of certain aspects, including the Pluto return. And most astrologers are, at the very least, reviewing it. Because I do a lot of financial work and a lot of mundane astrology, world events, I try to look at it from a slightly different perspective than many astrologers. I got an opportunity in my years down in the Mercantile Exchange to see astrology work on a grand scale. Because every single day I was watching the collective interact through astrology and trading cotton and silver and the currencies and all the rest of it. So I made a number of rather unique predictions, including the crash of '08, more than a year in advance, within a week of its occurrence.
Right.
So when I look at the future now, one of the things that I use as my barometer is the economic situation, not just the stock market, but what we're going through. So I'm looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say tonight.
Okay, great. And we have Alexandra Santiago, who's going to take a Vedic look at the future. And Alex, I think you came pretty close to predicting a very upsetting year last January. Do you want to review what you said? Because I think there you said some key stuff there. So wait, unmute yourself there, Alex. Yes.
We go, just unmuted. Hello, everybody, and hi, Alan, again. Thanks for having me back. I love it. And well, you know, most of us were focusing on the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, and we were speculating what that might be. And, you know, we were all pretty right on in that we had to prepare for something, even if we didn't know exactly what it was. And it would be life-altering for everybody. We're still dealing with that. Now we have, this year, I feel, we'll have some similarities and some differences. We're not completely out of the woods. I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be I'm calling it a bumpy ride to awakening or enlightenment. I think ultimately it will start, and when we look back, it's gonna be a really good year spiritually for us, but we're being purged. And we really have to come home to ourselves this year if we're going to thrive and remain in balance moving forward. But I kind of think a lot of the worst is over, but not completely. There's some stuff here that's going to be really intense coming up with the Saturn Uranus square. And I also offer a Vedic angle as well. And it's not smoother either. But I'm not afraid. That doesn't help anything, but
right.
Yeah.
Well, last year when you said that, I didn't want to believe it because I like everything to be great. And then it's like,
I have Moon in Sag. I hear you in both systems. I'm the optimist.
right. So I guess sometimes you have to swallow the medicine or something. But
and find the sugar within to make the medicine go down, right? As Mary Poppins.
So we're not out of it yet. You're saying there's still going to be.
No.
All right, we'll get back to you. Now let me introduce Sergio here. Sergio is a good friend of mine. He is really the keeper of secrets of the Mexican oral tradition, the shamanic tradition. And do you have anything to say about? Well, let me show my PowerPoint first, and then I'll introduce. I have this PowerPoint here that I wanted to share. Do you see that on the screen there?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone? Yes. Okay, let me just see. Okay, there's the abyss. That's 20. This is what we just are leaping over right here. This is my interpretation. From 2020 to 2021, that is an abyss that we are scanning there. So this is what someone sent me off the internet. Aquarius will rule 2021 to 2022. There will 7 planets in the sign of Aquarius. The last time this happens was the Dark Ages ended. The Renaissance rebirth began. A time of plagues ended, and a spirit shift began. So starting February 2021, a revolution of mind and spirit, a real Aquarian beginning to a new time. That's what it looks like. One thing I do want to predict, if in this COVID bill that was just signed, in 180 days, 180 days, this is not a prediction, this is something that actually will happen. The Congress is supposed to disclose UFOs. This was in the bill. UFO disclosure needs to be released, Defense Department. So we're aware, Senate Select Committee on Intelligence report on Intelligence Authorization Act, which means they have to submit a report of unidentified aerial phenomena within 6 months. So that, I think that's not necessarily a prediction. It's something that will happen. I think we're going to have a lot of UFO revelations this year. I've also written a book about that called Making Contact. You can pre-order that on Amazon, a little commercial for myself. And it has a lot of great people in this book. Linda Moulton Howe, Whitley, Strieber. These are all essays. Even John Mack, if you know who he is, have all contributed to this. I got permission from John Mack's estate. So look for that, pre-order Making Contact on Amazon if you can. Tomorrow, I'm hosting a walk-in conference, Cosmology of the Soul, go to Portal to Ascension. And enough from me. This I want to introduce. This is Sergio Magaña's latest book, The Real Toltec Prophecies, The Age of the Sixth Sun. And that's where we're coming into. We've just been in this time of transition. So we're moving into a dark sun. This is from the book, a son of the Nahual, where the perceptions turn inward. And like the old age is part of looking outward, but this time is a part of looking inward. And this marks a whole new shift in human consciousness. So Sergio, thanks for being here. And do you want to give a little background just on what makes you the authority on the ancient oral traditions of Mexico, if you don't mind? Wait, you muted. Wait, start that introduction again. You're muted.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, okay. Thank you, Alan, for the invitation. Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be in the panel with such interesting people. And okay, I got it into the Mexican tradition by coincidence, if we can say that, because I used to be the host of a radio show actually about the spirituality, and I was interviewing people from different traditions like that. And I think that one person changed completely my life because was one of the keepers of the Toltec lineage, one lineage that came from more than 1,000 years from master to student, that heard the radio show. And with the voice, he says that because he's still alive and a very good friend, and we teach together, he said he is the one that is going to take the message of my lineage to the world. And so he went to look for me, and we were teaching certain things. He was interrupting, and then he told me, I didn't come to learn anything. I came to teach you. In the beginning, I didn't quite believe it, but then he was so insistent that I gave him an hour, and in 1 hour, he showed me all the mathematics of the Toltec and Aztec count, that actually all the book of the real Toltec prophecies is about that. And he told me what was going to happen. I didn't know if it was going to be really true. I wrote a book in Italy like many years ago, telling that the shift was in 2021, not in 2012, and what was going to happen from 2012 to 2021. And when it started fitting, I said, oh my God, he had like the real count, and especially what happened in the previous year and what is coming. So I am sharing actually not my prophecy, but I am sharing 2 lineages actually of my 2 teachers, because then he introduced me other one that is 1,500 years old, and the other more than 1,000 years.
I'll send you something. Okay. Sorry. Can you tell us then 2020, I was just on the phone, someone's trying to get in the room, Amy. But so what did we just go through, and what's going to happen in 2021? Why is this? What are we leading in? What is this year about? And what is the rest of the sixth sun about? Talk about the aspects of the fifth sun and what's different about this time.
Okay, of course. What I'm going to talk is about the long count. If you see the Aztec calendar, that is the famous sunstone that has like a sun in the center with the tongue out, like that is not the tongue, it's the flint of justice. That one is in the outer ring, is referring to the long count. That is a cycle of 26,500 years. In the Toltec and central count, And they said that everything was split, the measures of time in four, like 4 moments of the day, 4 phases of the moon, 2 solstices, 2 equinoxes. So they split the long count in 4, and it gives you periods of 6,625 years. And all of them have 29 years of transition between all of them. For example, the Mayans split the long count because it's a universal number in 5. Also, it's the precession of equinoxes of the Egyptians, and so it's a universal number. And so all these suns or periods rule what is the majority of the collective consciousness. So they also represent metaphorically one part of the day. For example, some suns could be from midnight to the dawn, others from the dawn to the midday, and that gives characteristics. The fifth one that we're finishing, that is the past 6,000 years, started just before the sunset, metaphorically. So when they start with the sun, so it is like our perception. Normally, when we have light and we are awake, we are looking outside. So those suns are really good for religion, for example. People tend to look for a god or something creating everything outside from them. Also for medicine, people look for doctors or plants. Something is happening now. The people of the fifth sun is still looking for vaccines and that to solve all the problems. For satisfaction is look outside, also to conquer. But now we're entering in a new sun that is starting in the midnight. So those are like the most spiritual suns because it's like having closed eyes and looking inside. First to your psyche and your underworlds, that is like your unconscious nowadays. And actually the transition, all the eclipses are marking these times. For the Toltec and Aztec cultures, it started in the solar eclipse that we have in 1991. And the first 20 years were supposed to have an external change in which everything outside us would change and glimpses of a new consciousness will become, were supposed to come. And actually it happened with technology, but I received this information in 2005. So actually it was happening. So I couldn't see like the accuracy, but then he told me that the alignment of 2012 was correct, but it didn't have like the an adjustment that came later for cultures that flowered after the Mayans, like Toltecs and Aztecs, and to move the date. And that from 2012 to that actually was the end of 2012, from 2013 to 2021, there were going to be really challenging years because we were going to face the underworlds. And I must say that for the Aztec count and the Central Mexican, that wasn't measured exactly like ours, but we are still like in 2020. Why? Because the year starts the 12th of March. So we are still living the 8th underworld. And the 8th underworld was about complete darkness. So it is supposed that when we are in complete darkness, you cannot see the path, and we were going to be forced to stop. And it happened completely. That's when I couldn't deny the how accurate was the count. And also it was said that in this previous sun, the fifth, we created a complete imbalance with the feminine forces because they were related to a second place and like that. And that the first one that was going to show like the imbalance was going to be the earth with lack of abundance, with infections, and with some people aging and dying. And that was for the first year. That was from March, actually, 12th of March of 2020 to the 12th of March of 2021. We're still there, and we're moving to the new underworld of 2021 to 2022. That will be the one that is named of the complete peace.
That's what this year, this year is a year of complete peace. last year was a year of darkness, you're saying? And
Yeah, but not exactly, because there are two ways of having the complete peace. The one that solves their personally your underworlds, that is using much more, because it's a son of night, your dreams to create your reality, because we'll be ruled by the night, by the moon, and by the earth. So to use your dreams in order to create reality, to minimize your repetitive destructive patterns. See the areas in which you are addicted to suffering, that you create more trouble in your life, and to reduce them with any method, you know. Of course, in the Toltec tradition, there were solutions. I would have never written something that creates fear without solutions. And then the fear of change, because a lot of people is still wanting the previous order to come back, and it's not coming back never. The next,
the old order's not coming back because the whole vibration of the planet has shifted and the quality of the sun itself is different.
yeah, and so that people that wants, and that in the previous years were wanting everywhere in Greece, in Britain, in America, even here to come back to the Aztecs, and that is not possible. We're moving to a new era, and we have to learn the new rules and to use them. Of course, take care of ancestral patterns that we're carrying,
right,
and heavy emotions. And with that, you would be in complete peace. The other possibility is that the complete peace is a forced peace that will be through the darkness of being locked down or losing freedoms, of sadness, of despair, and that will take to that famous phrase that we say, rest in peace, to the death of many people. And 2021 is quite intense because it's the official also entrance in the solar eclipse of the 26th, the moon eclipse of 26th of May, the officially the start of the sixth sun without any influence of the fifth. And then the second feminine force that will be activated is the moon. For the ancient Mexicans, the moon represented what was named like a god, Tezcatlipoca, the one that gave you everything or took from you everything. That actually is the unconsciousness, because that thinks of God is a bad translation of a Nahuatl, the Toltec and Aztec language, of Teotl, that means energy, from the Greek root Theo, the god. So they said they were gods. But and it said that in his mirror, or her mirror, because it has masculine and feminine names, would give you fortune or misfortune. But if we take out the God thing, the ones that are in front of a mirror are ourselves. So, but the hidden part of ourselves, that is the one that will take us to the best possibility or to tragedies.
Right.
So the moon will be activated. So it will be a much more dualistic year in which a lot of people will go to fortune. The ones that are accepting the change, that are moving towards the new order, that are clearing their inside. Everyone has done it, because actually technology that is making that for many people. So instead of looking outside, like in the fifth sun, now everyone is looking into a cell phone. But most of the people will stop there in the cell phone, and they will be trying to get solutions from the outside. The ones that jump from technology to the inside may have an amazing time, but the others will go to actually misfortune that will take to death. That period was in the Toltec and Aztec count, marked from May from 2021 to the new fire, that is the perfect alignment of Orion and the Pleiades. That is the 24th of November of 2026.
That's going to be the real new time. It begins, the new sun begins this year at May 18th. There's a powerful moment on May 26th, March 18th, and then May 26th. What can we expect on May 26th of 2021?
The complete increase of people going, like we said, is the one that gives you peace or war. So many places are going to war, and many to a better peace, and even people inside of them. Duality in economics, much more. And of course, the people that, because the moon rules the dreams. So the people that acknowledge that our dreams create our reality. That's why we say the girl of my dreams, the work of my dreams, my worst nightmare, meaning that you dreamt it before, and that they start working in their lucidity, in the hypnagogic, to plant archetypes in order to create their reality. And that will be some of the ones, of course, working in your underworlds in any method that you would like, are the ones that will have much more probabilities to go into fortune and to survive, because actually the ones that die, no one can escape the lessons of the earth. So if you die, if you pass away because you didn't adapt to a new time, then you will come back in the lineages that stayed, and that will be a lot easier if you come in a family that is much more spiritual and not so religious, or in a family that is in a better contact with the earth, with themselves. And so interesting times, I think.
Wait, so so November 24th, 2026 is the time that this new awakening will really take hold here, you're saying?
Yes, but it's the end of the shift, because from now we are already there, and it's a personal decision. So I have seen so many people this year changing so much, finding new ways of working, of relating with themselves, of their spirituality. For example, I was without a job because I used to give workshops all over the world, and then I moved, and I had a quite a good year. But many people had a terrible one. But this will keep on, and will be a lot more after May. And it's to really solve your own puzzle, and not to get in the trap of the collective fear, because many things are going to be much more extreme, and more from May. And the complete kind of shift to the new order, it ends in 2026. So and it will be many, because intuitively we know that there were people that could make miracles, and to move matter like in dreams, that will begin popping out from those times. So actually, I think that why not to choose your own self like one of those, and train yourself and working yourself, and understanding that it doesn't matter if it was conspiracy theory, if no one did the change. It was the dream of the cosmos. It always happens, and eventually it will go to the day forces again. And it's
but not to so let me just recap here. So we're moving out of the time of the fifth sun, which was the daylight sun, a day sun, and everything was exterior to ourselves. And since was it what'd you say, 1991, we started the shift towards the sixth sun, which was an interior part, an interior vibration, that frequency. And so this is a time of looking inward and not outward. And this is for the next 6,000 years, we'll be in this cycle of opening up the internal psyche, the dream world, the power of dreams, and letting go of everything that we thought was external to ourselves. And now we're awakening to this new time. Is that sort of a recap there? I mean, and we'll come back to you. I just want to share. So a lot of what Sergio said can be found in his book, The Real Toltec Prophecies. It's out by Hay House now. And it's very exciting because he maps it out from 2013. And you go how many years into the future then, till 2026?
Yeah, we ended, but actually it's 6,000 years more, because the new order, and it's perfectly placed, because it's putting that darkness, that feminine force in the gap between your thoughts, in your delta, that is the deepest sleep, the dreams, and in many places where you can create. So actually it has a lot of solutions.
Right. So look for the lunar eclipse of May 26th as a time of big change too. Okay, thanks. Can you stick around in case people have questions later?
Yes, of course.
All right, great. So, Jenny, since I know you the longest, do you want to start? And I just have a question in the chat here for an astrologer. I heard with all the planets in Aquarius, we're in for a new shift, but can you explain, this is the dawn, is this the dawning of the age of Aquarius? I thought that was the 1960s. So,
well, that's not, no, that it doesn't mean that yet.
okay,
Go ahead. You know, in my opinion, if you remember back in the 60s, we had a quote called "Power to the People," and John Lennon wrote the song "Power to the People." And Aquarius is a group sign. It rules groups of people. So Pluto is still in Capricorn, but Jupiter and Saturn going into Aquarius is going to be working for the people a lot more than for the corporations. All the time that the Capricorn and the Pluto were in, I'm sorry, Saturn and Pluto were in Capricorn, billionaires got tax breaks, corporations got tax breaks. It seemed that we were enslaved by the government to support these big corporations and their shareholders. So now I think it's going to start to turn around. And I think that by the time we get through our Pluto return for America, that once Pluto starts going into Aquarius, that we will be forgiving college debt. We will be having universal health care. New people coming into the government, younger people with better ideas that maybe really represent their constituents. These different new people will be bringing in new ideas. Let's make the government work for the people instead of the people working for the government.
Okay, what about the Aquarian aspect? Is this really the values of Aquarius, you know?
Let's think about that. I mean, what Aquarius also rules technology.
Oops.
I'm sorry. And so it also rules technology. So we're going to have a lot of advancements in medical and techno. In fact, the last time, and this year we're going to have the Saturn squaring Uranus. And the last time we had that was when we had the .com. So .coms became very hot. I would go into a cab in New York and the cab driver would tell me what .com to buy. So it's like everybody was a stockbroker because we just had the internet letting us trade stocks for the first time. We didn't have to go to a broker anymore. So even though .coms for the most part fell to the wayside, it brought in the new technology that brought us Airbnb, Netflix, YouTube, Google, Facebook, the rest of them. They come on the tailcoats. So this year we have that same setup, only they're in different signs. This year, Saturn is in Aquarius and Uranus is in Taurus. Last time in 1990, 2099 area, I forgot exactly the dates. But anyway, the point is that time we had the opposite. We had Uranus and Aquarius ruling tech, and then we had the Saturn trying to hold on in Taurus, trying to hold on to the old realities, right? But
so what can we expect from that? What do you see?
Well, there's going to be a lot of problems. Of course, we have unemployment. We have people out of work. We have people that are getting more and more homeless. I think the homelessness in New York City rose 60%. I was just reading. The Coalition for the Homeless had some stats there. So the main thing is that we do have a lot of problems still. You know, it's not going to be the year that everything goes back to normal or is better. It's going to be a year that we have to roll up our sleeves and kind of, you know, work on things, you know. And there's still going to be, you know, violence, and there's still going to be, what they call it, riots and stuff like that. We'll have another one apparently around the time of the inauguration. I'm not saying it's going to be in Washington. It can be elsewhere. But there's a lot of flare-ups ahead for us this year. Another one coming, I think, in the first part of February. And then actually, you know what's a really good thing? If anybody watching this wants to get a really good grip on the year ahead, you can get your planetary guide from, I'm in trouble with this, the planetary guide from Llewellyn. You can get it at your local bookstore. And she kind of takes you through each week and describes what she thinks is going to happen. And one of the things she said that's coming up for January 18th to the 24th, the quote is burn it all down. So people are, it's warrior Mars conjuncting Uranus and Taurus on Wednesday, followed by squares. And then it goes on even more, smoldering embers. And then February 1st to the 7th, outrage mobs versus even keel moderates. So it's really interesting that these planets in Capricorn made everybody so political. I mean, people I've known for 30, 40 years, all of a sudden they're very political and they, you know, this is my president. No, that's my president, you know, and I'm going, you have never been political a day in your life. And now look at you. So in a way, I think that that's a good therapeutic thing because I think we do need to be involved, but now it's sexy to be running for Congress. You know, when I grew up, it wasn't sexy to be part of the government. We didn't even know who ran what, right? They weren't rock stars. They're new rock stars, right? So I think that's going to change. I have a friend that I asked her something about the president. She goes, "Oh, I don't even know who's running," and she's an astrologer. And she recently said on Facebook, by the time Pluto gets out of Capricorn, you know, nobody will care about politics anymore. And she might be right. It's going to leave Capricorn in about 2 more years.
Well, is there a time where the values of Aquarius will come on in this decade?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Because, you know, right now, I think what happened, not only the COVID, but this enslavement, you know, where they're taking our taxes, but they're not taking Bezos' taxes, you know, that kind of a setup where I think we've been a little traumatized. Right. And my client called me the other day and he says, "Jenny, I'm going to work on my self-esteem." And I said, "Well, that's a great idea. I think we all need to." And he said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, because I have friends that have hundreds of millions of dollars. And when I talk to them, they say, I'm so broke. Look at, you know, these guys have 30 million. I only have a half a billion. They have 30 billion. I only have a half a billion. I live in this building. I'm the poorest person in the building." So you see, even rich people feel low self-esteem due to this. Well, look, I think I read today that Elon Musk had 160 billion, Mitchell mentioned. And he said, "I don't count my money." He said, "I got rid of my belongings because they bogged me down. I don't want to be weighed down. And when I die, I hope I have no money left because I want, like Bill Gates, I want all that money to be put to use in my lifetime."
But is anything going to change though?
Yeah. The values are going to change. Whereas having money and owning Earth, we're coming out of, like, we had 200 years of Jupiter and Saturn and Earth signs, right? Conjunctions. So now they're going to go into air signs for the next 200 years. And so so the deal is that the values shift along with that because now we're not going to care about hoarding money in banks. And there's really very little places you can invest your money anyway. And, you know, hoarding property and hoarding this and that. So that's all Capricorn because Capricorn rules banks, real estate, corporations, governments. So all these things became very important and people put value on that. In fact, I want to say around the time that Pluto went into Capricorn, I noticed if I went to Google a celebrity, because I used to like to look at their charts, and I go to Google them and all of it's a net worth. Everybody had a net worth behind their name. And so that was a sign of the times too, that everything became how much money do you have? You know, what are you holding on to? Now, so we're going to let go of that because it's going to be more about your experiences in life. You're going to value your time and your.
But Bitcoin just went up thousands of dollars. I mean, that's like another.
I'm lucky William got me into it. Yes.
So Bitcoin is still a good investment, you're saying?
Oh, Bitcoin is going to thrive during this. I'm sorry. Bitcoin is going to thrive during this time because we're going to have that. Hold on a second. We're going to have that Uranus Saturn square where everything is breaking down and new things are coming out, but it's a struggle. All right, it's just like giving birth. It's a struggle. As much as some things want to stay in position, they're going to have to give way, right? And so, I'm sorry, I got distracted by the phone. The question was.
You know, I'm just saying Bitcoin even.
Bitcoin, just like .com, all during the last Uranus, Uranus Saturn square, the Bitcoin stocks were going wild. I mean, .com, wild. So I think that the Bitcoin will go up too. And just look, 2 years ago, Jamie Dimon said it was a big scam. And now all of a sudden he said it's going to go to 145 a coin. I mean, like, so now the corporations are getting involved. And I do have a few predictions for this time,
Yes.
for this year I want to mention.
Yeah.
First of
please.
all, from everything I've been reading, you know, I don't think that New York restaurants are going to come back so easily because I live, you know, right here and right on my corner on St. Mark's. At first, they're building an automat. And this guy, I just read, he's building 100 automats. They're putting them all over the country. It's a dumpling automat. So you will order the food on your app, go pick it up from the food locker. You'll see red, yellow, and green. Bing, it's ready. You take it home. This type automats will come back, is what I'm trying to say.
That was
And
a sign of the Depression. Wasn't automats big during the Depression?
Well,
The
maybe so.
30s?
We are in a depression. There are more people out of work right now than there were in 1930, 1929.
Right.
Now,
Well, there are
and
more
then the
people.
other thing that's going to happen is that ghost kitchens. You know, we have so few restaurants left open right now that it's scary to be out at night. And anybody could walk in. So we have Sweet Greens. They don't take any cash. They got robbed so many times they just went cashless. So people want to be cashless. They want to be anonymous. They don't want to be sitting on a lonely block ready for someone to come in and rob them, right? So the ghost kitchens, they're behind the scenes. So nobody even knows. You just order off a Seamless or something. Now, the other thing, what's going to happen with the commercial real estate, right? Now, I got a lot of friends in commercial real estate because I work for them. And so these big buildings, oh my God. Do you know when they built the Empire State Building in 1930, it made no money until 1960? For
Wow.
30 years. It's a 30-year investment. So now they're going to repurpose commercial real estate. So what's going to happen in the future? You're going to live on floor number 10 and your garden will be up on floor 12. And then you'll take the elevator up to the 20th floor to go to work.
Right, because I was downtown Manhattan where by the financial district, there's hundreds of buildings down there, completely empty, 80 stories of buildings. And so something has to happen with that.
Yeah, no, it's going to happen that way. And we're going to get, because Aquarius rules groups, we're going to get more like a hive conditioning going on. We're going to want to live in groups of people. We're going to want to live not communally, but more tighter communities. And there won't be these. I remember 30 years, Gary said to me, 30 years ago, one day you won't commute to work anymore. You'll work from your home.
Well, here we
And
are.
here we are, right?
We're all
So,
at home.
Now,
Yes.
the other thing that's going to really be big, well, around the corner, we'll get some inflation. So I don't know what to tell you about money right now, because it's like, I mean, where are you going to put your money?
Right.
The markets will be rocky. I know Mitchell's going to talk about that.
Yeah.
The other thing is, you know, right now it's blockchain. It's all about blockchain. My client said, Jenny, I bought this company last year. Do you think I make money this year? They're going public. I said, what is it? He says, blockchain. I said, oh, of course they're going to make money. You're going to be rich. So blockchain is, if you don't know what blockchain is, it's a digital
Currency.
right here.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at this. It's an incorruptible digital ledger of economic transactions that can be programmed to record not just financial transactions, but virtually everything of value. And it's going to be used with food, with you know, banking, of course, with real estate, courts of law. They're going to have these records now instead of you know, the way that they conduct.
What's an example of blockchain? Like what? Is Bitcoin a blockchain currency?
Blockchain is a digital ledger. Yeah, Bitcoin is a blockchain.
Okay.
Or
Well, maybe
thereabouts.
William would
I
talk
think
about
the
that too.
grandfather of the blockchain, I think.
Any
And then when it comes to cryptos, if you want to know what to buy crypto-wise, you want to buy the cryptos that are going vertical. So that means that they take Ethereum and they're building layer after layer on top. All right. And the same with the Bitcoin. You don't necessarily want to get just a coin that doesn't have a lot of developers working on it. Okay.
Right.
The other thing is that they're working on, if you know this, if you remember the old IBM computers, right?
Yeah.
And in order for us to access data, we would have to kind of go to the place where they had the big grandfather computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we started going to the cloud. So Apple, I actually pay Apple for the cloud, Google for the cloud, you know, too much cloud up there. So now we're going to go away from the cloud because the new designers are working on a thing called DWeb, and it's going to be better for the people. It's not going to just be something that's a internet where you're going to pay your monthly fee to use it, right?
What is
So
it going to be though? What is it? How can you describe it?
Brian probably knows it more about it than I do. I read about these articles and it kind of goes right through my head, but I make a note. Okay, that D-Web is where we're going now. We're going to leave the cloud behind.
All right.
And the new technicians, the new tech people, that's what they want to work on. Because when people first went to Silicon Valley, Alley, whatever it's called, they went there because they were tired of the government. They were going to create something, you know, unique and novel and stuff like that. But now they become the powers that be, right? So things are going to be shifting. Not that you can't still buy stock in these companies. They'll be around for a while, but there's new companies emerging.
I just want to ask you, does you work with Gary Christensen, who's Uranian astrologer? Does he have any predictions that, and then we can just wrap up and go to someone else?
Yes, he does. He does have quite a few predictions. First of all, he thinks that there will be another virus when Neptune goes to 0 degrees of Aries.
When is
And
that?
that will be, geez, I think that's going to be in, I don't remember, a couple years. Okay, I'd have to Google it.
Okay.
So the Neptune, when it goes to 0 degrees of Aries, and then there, because Kronos and Hades are conjunct in 2030, that there's still a lot of corruption. Now, the good thing about blockchain is that it's going to get rid of a lot of corruption in many, many different levels. Okay. So, you know, imagine, I mean, they can hack Bitcoin, but I don't believe they can hack the ledger. It's something a little bit tricky, but I'd have to be more techie to understand it. But basically, that's the direction you want to go to. Now, here's the other bad thing, is that right now, Jupiter's ahead of Saturn. So when things start looking really good, like, you know, like, oh, wow, we have a vaccine, right? Everyone's so excited about this that we're going to, you know, be able to just get off the ground and start running. Well, the problem is that after you get the good news, then comes the Saturn and he gives you the bad news. So usually the first 10 years of a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction is considered to be difficult. And the second year is where the Jupiter is actually behind Saturn. First you have a problem, then you get to solve it. So we're kind of in reverse right now. The next pandemic will be when Neptune conjuncts Saturn at 0 degrees of Aries. I forgot to write the date down, but somebody with a computer over there can
2025.
2025,
Okay,
William.
well, I'm not so sure. There's one more thing I want to mention is that the woke movement started in 2011. So
what does that mean, the woke movement?
Awareness, you know, it's part of the Me Too. It's part of the, you know, get rid of the Civil War statues, you know, like who are we? We have to realize our country is still very young. We're up against India that has thousands of years of being a country, and China, thousands of years, right? And so many cultures that are so ancient compared to America. Right. So America, I mean, I would forgive America for almost anything because it's just such a new country still. It's like a big experiment, like Elon Musk. Right. So the woke movement, it's interesting. The same year the woke movement started, we had WikiLeaks and we had Arab Spring. So people fighting for their rights, you know, waking up to, you know, whatever they think the government represents or what, you know, different, you know, what do they call it, like social situations that need to be changed, you know, that need to benefit more people. So that'll be good. I do think we're going to have a war with Iran.
You think so? Even after
Iran. Look at me, I'm so political.
Even after Trump, when is that? Within the year or a couple of years?
Yes, because Biden is coming in on the Mars Uranus conjunction. He gets inaugurated that day, which also folklore has it that they don't stay in office. They die, they get assassinated, or they get impeached. They don't.
Right, with Mars and Uranus, the president inaugurated Mars and Uranus.
Yeah, the day of high calibrated violence. All kinds of horrible things can happen. So, you know, they have to be very careful, but it also is a sign of the president will be going to war. And so we know, or you know, we've got problems brewing, and you know, that may be happening. I don't even know what war looks like anymore. I mean, do we still send troops or do we send robots? You know?
Somebody said this was like the whole virus thing was a world war in a sense. So
yeah, and we still don't know really everything about that virus, do we?
No, we don't. Okay, maybe we'll come back. If anyone has questions, definitely use the chat. If anyone wants to comment on anything that they've heard
one
here.
more thing I want to say. I want to know when Neptune and Jupiter get together later on this year because Jupiter's going to leave Aquarius and go into Neptune. And that, I remember Mitchell saying to me years ago that he was worried about a virus maybe coming during the Neptune and Pisces. And so I was thinking, oh my God, let's see what that Neptune does when the Jupiter gets in that sign, because there could be something else that we have to deal with suddenly.
Like, what do you mean something else?
Well, it could be a real woke moment, right? Because it's Pisces and we got to like save everybody from, everything that's bad and turn it around. Or maybe it could be some, see, because the mass, I think I saw.
Could it be
I mean,
the
Jupiter
UFOs
in
landing?
Pisces.
Could that be a woke moment?
What?
The UFOs landing.
Oh, yeah. We got to do the UFO thing. Yeah, that's going to be a big story this year.
Okay.
And the mask thing, we still have to wear masks for a while. So that's such a bummer.
Well, we'll get back to you. Thanks, Jenny. Should we go to Judy? Because Judy has some charts of the year. Oh, wait, Julian, did you have something to say? Unmute yourself. Wait, but Julian? Okay, go ahead. Well, I'll get back to you, Julian. I was just going to go.
I'm here. Oh, okay.
I was just going to go to Judy, and then I thought we were going to come back to you at the end. So, Judy, what do you feel about some of what Jenny said, and what's your feeling about all this?
Well, I agree that it's going to certainly be interesting and that we are still going through a time. Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. Sorry.
Can you raise your volume a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, that's better.
Okay.
Yes.
What I was saying is that Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008, and it has been Pluto's function, especially for people who are not, so familiar with astrology. Pluto's function is to destroy and then to rebuild. So the immediate thing that happened was the crisis of 2008, when the economy, which was, pretty fake based on the unsecured mortgages and everything, came crashing down. And they were saying things like, the Fed is running out of bullets, and the inflation of the economy, and I don't mean it in terms of monetary inflation, but like the holding up of the economy has continued throughout that time. And now as we get toward the end of Capricorn and we come to the point where Pluto is approaching the same point where Pluto was when the US was born in 1776, I think that we're going to see some drastic changes in our form of government. And this year we have the Saturn in Aquarius and Uranus in Taurus square. There will be 3 times when it is exact. One is in February, the 17th, one is in June, and one is Christmas Eve next year. It's 12/24. And it's all in Taurus and Aquarius. It's very interesting because Uranus and Aquarius makes everyone extremely edgy. It's as though Taurus is it's the time of year when the bull is standing over the sprouts of grass and protecting them, and nothing can move that bull. It's just really intent on keeping protected. But now it's just been completely agitated by this electric energy that's coming from Uranus.
Right. So how does that look? How does that manifest in society?
It makes people nervous. Everybody. I mean, I have a coaching business. I do transpersonal coaching for people, and they're losing their stuff. People are just freaking out.
Well, don't you think we're coming out of that with the change of politics and all that?
I'm not so sure that the politics are going to change.
All right.
I think the divisiveness is still going to be there. I'm still not sure who's going to be inaugurated or if it will take place on January 20th. I mean, the election took place at a moment when Mercury was coming out of a retrograde. And, that was instant confusion in terms of the election. There is so much that is still unanswered, and so many people who are upset on both sides that it's hard to say that there's going to be this magical change. And to me, Saturn is a ruler of Aquarius. It is the ancient ruler of Aquarius. And it's a very, it's a stiff energy, much more so than Taurus. Taurus is a soft, protective energy. Aquarius is the water bearer, and the water bearer has a jug, and he goes around and he tells people to wake up. And sometimes he puts an expletive in there, wake the up. And, and
Right.
so that's going on at the same time. So we have Saturn there and Uranus in Taurus. And so there's going to be like this revolutionary spirit going on, but then also this thing of like, pushing ideas on people. So I don't know really which way it's going to be, but I do think that we're going to be in a lot of turmoil, at least for the next 3 or 4 years, until the end of 2023, when the Pluto conjunction completes.
Do you see an end of the virus at some point?
Well, I think that it's interesting. I'm not so sure. I
Okay.
think that there are some people who are using the virus to affect certain behaviors and certain situations, and so that's something that I'm skeptical about. Is there a virus? Certainly, people are sick. There's no question about that. But to the degree that everybody has to be in their homes by themselves, I think that it's really having a terrible psychic effect on the world. And certainly, if my clientele is any indication, people are losing it. But the good thing about it, and I don't, as Sergio said, let's look at the cure, or the thing that's going to make us feel better. This is a year to really look inside ourselves,
Right.
to look inside ourselves. Where do I feel like I want to change, and what is it that I want to wake up to? And I certainly would welcome the extraterrestrial influence, especially if it's of a good nature.
Well, do you see that as, isn't Uranus a kind of extraterrestrial
Yes,
planet?
it is. It certainly it represents.
And so is Aquarius, actually.
Yes, yes. And
And-
well, Saturn is in Aquarius, and Aquarius could to some degree allow Saturn to bring structure to that energy so that people have a greater acceptance. I think that the idea of disclosure is wonderful for those of us who are accepting of it, but to the average person, it's quite disconcerting, possibly
Right.
even more disconcerting than the virus. Maybe the virus was something to prepare people for that.
Well,
know,
I think there is a connection between the change of reality that the virus has brought and the change of reality that ETs will bring. That's
Yes.
sort of what this book I put together is all about.
I can't wait for your book. I'm definitely going to get it.
Well, you can pre-order it. I'm going to put the pre-order in the chat, but we are coming into a new time, whatever that is. And
Absolutely.
there is no normal, as Sergio said, and other people. We have to accept the fact that we are in unknown territory.
Yes,
And
exactly.
I
That's
think-
really, yeah. That would be what I would say about 2021. And when we're in unknown territory, fear creeps in. So what we
Right.
have to do to combat the fear is to have faith
Mhm.
that we will be all right, because we are spirit beings in bodies.
Mhm. Right. But also the unknown could be very exciting, because what people fear about the unknown is really the known. And
Mhm.
so the unknown is unpredictable. So should we come back to you? Do you have anything else? Or
No, I just had something a little
go ahead.
to point out about
Yeah, please.
the
Yeah.
last night thing. Okay, so let me share
Yes.
this. Share
Do you want
screen.
to share your screen? Yes, share
Yeah,
your
let's
screen.
share this. And this is a Uranian chart for those of you who are not familiar with it. It sort of slams all of the cardinal signs here, the fixed signs here, and the mutable signs here. The purpose for it is for us to see the planetary combinations and how they're affecting a central point. And here's the Aries point.
Right.
And the first thing that we should recognize is that the moon was void, of course,
Yesterday, you're saying? Yesterday?
night when the
Oh.
Electoral College concluded and certified the votes.
Okay.
So that's why I'm not sure. Okay. And then the other thing
Wait,
here,
because
we have
when the moon is void, there's uncertainty. Is that what you're saying?
the moon is void and you start something, it may not end the way that it was intended from the
Oh,
beginning.
oh, okay.
It's a bad time, for instance, to make a purchase.
Right.
Unless you like really scrutinize it and see, does this sock have any holes in it? You could take it home and find out there's a hole in the sock.
Right.
So I don't know what form that's going to take, but that was not a good omen neither, as was already mentioned. The inauguration date's not so great either. But then, also we have the north and south nodes come together in this chart along with Neptune, and it's right here on a sensitive point. And that's sort of, the actual meaning of it is dissolutions and separations in general. So I don't have a whole lot of faith that what happened last night has a lot of staying power. I don't know what form that takes. Does it mean that the person who was elected by the Electoral College doesn't stay in? I don't know. Then we have the planet Zeus also. But that's not as important because it doesn't move as fast.
But can't you also be referring to whatever that riot was? Doesn't have a lot of staying power as well?
This is a little bit, the timing for that is, this
Earlier.
is, the moon is the hour.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah. And so, this is a little more precise. I would
so
have to
you're
do
talking about the exact hour that certification was made by
exact
Congress.
minute, the exact minute.
Oh, a minute. I see. Okay.
So, that's basically what I wanted to show, that, and to illustrate it that way. That was the easiest way to see it. But if you just run a regular chart, you can very easily see that the moon was void of course. And to me, that's enough to make me nervous.
Wait, so you're saying the political environment is still very unstable, no matter
And
what,
will remain so.
and will remain so till when?
The end of 2023.
Oh, okay.
I really believe that we need to design a new system of government.
Mhm.
And
I
that-
think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think that anything we have now really works. So we need to find a new way of doing it. And Aquarius will certainly bring that along. And yes, we are entering into the age of Aquarius. So, dump that water jug, baby.
Right. I'm an Aquarian myself, so with a moon in Taurus, so
Oh,
and a good placement of Uranus. But anyway, okay, well, we'll come back. Maybe we'll do another round after everybody speaks.
thank you. Nice
is-
to be here this evening. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing. That's great. That clarifies some things. Is Mitch still here with us? Is Mitch?
Excuse me, Alan.
I'm
yes.
here.
Before you move on, I just want to let you know there's a couple questions in the chat.
Oh,
that
okay.
came
Yeah,
in.
there's a couple of questions in the chat. What questions are you noticing, Amy?
So someone asked who was using the virus for what?
All right, we'll cover that. And then how long is Saturn in Aquarius? I think Mitch can cover that. And all right, we'll get to, thank you, but maybe we'll get to some of those questions after everybody speaks as well. Mitch, do you want to go next? And then we'll
Sure,
go.
Alan. I'm having a little problem with my video. I'm not sure why my
Do you
picture
want me to come back to you?
I don't know. I had this problem when I did a panel last week too, and I'm not sure exactly why. All of a
Well,
sudden,
we don't need to see your face unless you want to show your
well,
face.
whatever. Okay, no, I'll talk.
All right. Okay,
always
this
have
is
plenty to
Mitch
say.
Lewis. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, I love listening to everybody's perspective. I agree with some things. I disagree with others. We always do. Astrologers will look at something and come up with their own perspective. This pandemic is very similar to the 1918 pandemic. That one began in March, approximately, and Saturn was conjunct Neptune. Neptune rules infectious diseases. Saturn is the limiter. And it created a virus, and it was limited in its capacity. Then, of course, the troops were sent over, and the virus incubated in the trenches, which was a great place for any disease to incubate. And in November, when they all came back to all over the world, millions of troops were released. Now Uranus was in opposition to Saturn. It was a completely different energy. The virus had mutated, and in approximately a year or so, it killed about 50 million people. Now, what they told you to do in the 1918 influenza was wash your hands, wear a mask, and stay 6 feet away. Sound familiar? William, the numbers vary between 50 and more than 200 million. So while your point is well taken, it's a very wide number. They don't even know in India whether there were as many as 100 or 150 million who died because they weren't keeping records.
But it was definitely connected to the World War I situation, wasn't it?
Well, it was connected in
Yeah.
that, like I said, it incubated in the trenches. The reason why it's called the Spanish flu, by the way, is because Spain was the only nation in Europe that was neutral, and it was the only nation that allowed its newspapers to report on it. And so it became known as the Spanish flu. It had
But it was
nothing to
also
do with
much
Spain.
deadlier than this flu, isn't it?
Well, it was
Was it?
deadlier, but it mutated. That's the point. And we don't know what the mutations are going to be in the future with this flu. However, from my point of view, my predictions for this coming year, we're not out of the woods by any means, but this pandemic is going to end. And it will end, and I see the endings coming from different perspectives. One of them, as Jenny pointed out, I did work on Wall Street for a number of years using astrology. And the collective has a consciousness. And what I see the collective doing, the day that they announced that there was a vaccine that worked and was being accepted, several things happened. For one thing, the Dow and the S&Ps exploded. They went up, I'm not even sure, I don't have the numbers in front of me, I think it was about 1,000 points or something. And the NASDAQ collapsed. All of a sudden, people weren't going to do Zoom anymore. Of course, we're doing it. But all of these companies exploded because people were stuck at home. Now, all of a sudden, there was the consciousness that maybe we're not going to be stuck at home anymore. So people who invest, who buy and sell stocks and look at futures, they all of a sudden took their money out of the high-tech companies and they put them back into things like Macy's, JetBlue, whatever. I recently bought some AMC stock, the movie company, movie houses. It's trading at $2 a share. It's ridiculously cheap. Now, it may go out of business and I might lose my entire investment, but if the pandemic ends, people are going to go run back to the movies. I love going to movies. I think it's terrific. If there was no more virus, no more pandemic, we'd all go running back to the movies. And AMC will go from $2 a share to, God only knows, 20, 30, hey, there I am, $20, $30 a share. Secondly, another point I want to make. I know Bitcoin is absolutely hysterical at the moment. I get it. I watch it every day on CNBC. And it's remarkable. And if you bought it at the right time, oh my God, what a great trade that is. There are bubbles and there are busts. The dot-com bubble was created by a number of things. For one thing, Jupiter and Uranus both entered Aquarius. Aquarius was technological things. The dot-com bubble was all about technological stocks. You had a company called dogfood.com. It had nothing but a name. And the price of the stock went from 10 cents to $180 based on nothing. It was a bubble. When the bubble popped, people refused to believe it. And I had one friend who was a bartender his whole life, lives in a fourth floor, rent-controlled walk-up, and all of a sudden he had $1.5 million in his account. And I begged him, I said, take the money out. What are you, crazy? Take it out. No, it's going to keep going up. It's going to keep going up. That's what a bubble does. And the planet that is most active in bubbles is Neptune. Fairly obvious. It's an illusion. It creates this fog and we don't know what's real and what isn't. And he wound up having to sell his car for margin call. He lost every dime that he had. Not just him. There were people on the floor who I knew who were traders for 30 years, and they wouldn't believe it. Well, Bitcoin was started on January 3rd, 2009 in Dublin. I have a 6:15 p.m. Time. I'm not 100% sure if the time is right, but there's a great deal of Neptune energy happening right now in the Bitcoin chart. This doesn't mean that Bitcoin's going to go out of business, but I think it's a bubble. And it doesn't trade the way a currency trades. Currencies do not trade that way. If you look at the chart of Bitcoin, and I'm going to be doing a webinar about the financial markets very soon, and I'm going to cover Bitcoins and oil and many other things. Currencies trade like this. They trade against each other. The euro against the dollar, against the Canadian dollar, against the Chinese currency, against the yen, against all of it. Bitcoin is trading like this. And now, of course, it's trading like that. Now, if you bought it at a good price, you got a huge profit in there, great. If you want to let it ride, let it ride. I believe in using stops so that if it goes to a certain point, I get out and my profit is locked in, but I don't tell people how to trade. But I do see it as a bubble. And I think that the bubble is going to eventually pop. And Bitcoin has popped before. One time when I was on Coast to Coast, and I told George that Bitcoin looked to me from the chart that it was going to collapse. And within several weeks of my appearance, it dropped 75% of its value. And yes, Bitcoin does get hacked. Somebody mentioned in the chat room. It certainly does. And it will again.
But it's at its highest value right now. It's as high as it's been, right?
That's what a bubble is.
Okay.
That's exactly what a bubble is.
But
you know,
like,
some
real estate could be a bubble, but it never goes back to, like in New York real estate.
Of course it does, Alan. In 2005, in fact, I was staying with Jenny. I think at the time I had come back from Miami. I think that's around the time, I'm not sure. But in 2005, Saturn, which rules the real estate market, and it rules banks, and it rules the things in our bodies and in our society that hold us together. Saturn left Cancer. Cancer rules the inside of the house, and Capricorn rules the outside of the house. That's polarities, of course, in astrology. And Saturn left Cancer in July of 2005, and I was on Jenny's TV show and doing my newsletter and doing lectures at the Princeton Club and all over the place. And I predicted that that was the end of the housing bubble. And that is exactly the top of the housing bubble. Then Saturn went into Leo and began its opposition to Neptune, and it completely dissolved. The mortgage business was a complete fraud. It was a bubble. It was a lie. They were selling $750,000 homes to people who made $30,000 a year.
So what are you seeing now in 2021 in the decade that we're moving into?
Okay, for one thing, Pluto, we're going through our Pluto return. I do a lot of medical astrology.
Pluto to return as the country is going through
the country.
Okay.
It takes about 250 years for Pluto to go around. Luckily, I don't believe I'm going to see my Pluto return. I certainly hope not, unless I become a vampire, and then we'll talk. Pluto in the body rules everything that eliminates waste. It rules the colon, the urethra, the sweat glands. It even rules the tear ducts. Any way that we eliminate waste from the body. In a horary chart, Pluto rules things. If Pluto is very prominent in a horary chart and you lost your wedding ring, you might look in the garbage or in the garbage disposal or in the toilet, or maybe you threw it out. Well, America's infrastructure is decayed, disintegrated.
Which part of the infrastructure do you mean?
All of it.
Okay.
All of it. We have two tunnels that go under the Hudson River. Those of you who know New York, the Hudson, the Lincoln Tunnel and the
Holland Tunnel.
Thank you, the Holland Tunnel.
And they were built in like 1910, right?
Right. And during Hurricane Sandy, one of them was very badly damaged. And there was a bill to build a third tunnel. And Chris Christie, who was governor of New Jersey at the time, vetoed it. 30% of American economics goes through those two tunnels. 30% of our entire country's economy goes through it because it connects all of New England and upstate and Canada all the way through to the rest of the country. These tunnels are collapsing. It should take you 2.5 hours to go from Boston to Washington, D.C. We should have trains that are going 600 miles an hour like they do in Japan. We have trains that stop for cows now. I mean, come on. I'm afraid to go across a bridge when I'm driving because they're all falling apart. The highways are falling apart. The subways are antiquated. All of this has to be rebuilt. This is part of what the Pluto return implies. So one of the things that Joe Biden is going to have to do, and Joe Biden is going to sit in the White House, there's no question about it. As to what happens to him over the next couple of years, well, that's another issue, but he's going to be sitting in the White House. He has to initiate the equivalent of an FDR type of infrastructure bill. It will put millions of people back to work in good paying jobs. It will lift us into the 21st century We are literally slipping into a third world country. And it's not just because of our politics, it's not just because of our divide. It's because of where we spend our money. And this is where it has to be spent.
So it's like a New Deal type thing, FDR New Deal type situation that we need to do if he has the vision to do that.
Well, he does. And that is what he's hoping to accomplish. Whether he can succeed or not, I don't know.
Okay.
What happened in Georgia the other day gives him a lot of wind in his back. Because if he has all three of the Senate, the Congress, and the White House, and he does it well. I mean, very often a party will have all three and they'll abuse the.
Did you finish the virus thing? Like, when do you see it ending?
Oh, the virus! I think the virus is on its way out. Again, I don't think it's going to suddenly disappear. It's going to take another year. Okay, in 1918, the virus took 2 years. When it finally subsided, we then had a depression from 1920 to 1922. It's very rarely spoken about. I do a lot of work on the history of stock markets and on the economy, so I'm aware of certain things that other people simply just don't bother studying.
But
and we had
after that depression, there was a huge research, the 20s.
Right, that was the Roaring 20s.
Right.
We're going to see the same thing. We're going to have a period of time when we have to get back on our feet. Depending on what is done over the next several years, we'll decide on how fast it happens. But we are going to see the Roaring 20s, interestingly, one more time. Right. And in my own accounts, I'm looking at post-pandemic world. And I'm looking at certain stocks that I'm investing in, including some marijuana stocks that are doing terrific because they believe, there's an old saying on Wall Street, buy the rumor, sell the fact. They start talking about something and, oh my God, everybody jumps in and they grab and they run up, which is what I think is somewhat what's happening with Bitcoin. Everybody thinks it's going to be the next big thing, so everybody has to jump in now. Then the fact occurs and then reality sets in. So I'm also holding JetBlue. I have Macy's, which is a terrifically run company by some very smart people. And they just got billions of dollars of cash infusion. People, and they've closed hundreds of stores and they're going online and they're thinking future.
Right.
They're thinking post-pandemic America.
Do you have Apple? What about Apple?
Well, Apple is Apple. Okay. There are certain companies that are just so rich. Apple being one of them, Google being another, Priceline.com for some strange reason. I think because of William Shatner. It trades at $1,200 a share. It's insane.
Okay.
But there are small companies. Look, I have a lot of clients who can't afford to buy several thousand shares of Apple. You need $300,000 to do that. So I look for very cheap stocks. That's why I'm looking at AMC. It's $2 a share. If I buy 1,000 shares and I lose it, okay, it's not going to bankrupt me. But if it goes up, look, Alan, I look for things that have like a 10-to-1 ratio. If I lose, I'm going to lose this much. But if I'm right, it's worth the investment.
So you're investing, you're not just giving advice, you're actually invested yourself. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would never, there are some stocks I stay away from. I wouldn't own Tesla right now. I wish I had bought it a couple of years ago. I wouldn't buy Bitcoin here. I wish I had bought it 6 months ago. Maybe if I had listened to William, I would have. But that it's a question of how one trades. Knowing the way that you can be 100% right about something and still get your what handed to you.
Right.
Because if you don't know how to trade, you get in at the wrong time. It's what happens in a crash. When the markets crash, what do you think the rich do? They buy it. It's the middle class that panics. Oh my God, look at how much I lost. And so they call their brokers and they get out to the worst possible time. As it's collapsing, then you can't get them to go and buy it back again.
So what's your advice now then?
Well, I think that we're going to have a very volatile market in 2021. I think in February, when Saturn squares Uranus, which is one of the classic connections in stock market crashes, we're going to see a correction. I'm not sure it's a stock market crash, but we're going to see a correction, which is usually around 10 or 15%.
And what date is that happening? What's that?
Well, I'm not looking for an individual day.
Okay.
I think that if you do that, it's a fool's game. Then
right.
If this is a trade and you're able to pull a bunch out of the middle, you can get rich.
All right.
If you're looking for the top or the bottom, you could be off by a few days and you'll screw it up.
Sometime
No.
this year, you think that's going to happen?
I think what's going to happen is we're going to see a market that's going to, it's already made a new high. All three of the indexes are at a new high. It's going to go down. It's going to turn around and try and make another new high. It's going to fail. It's going to do it again. It's going to fail. In 1965, Saturn opposed Uranus. In 2008, Saturn opposed Uranus in the exactly opposite signs,
right?
Which is why I was able to predict the crash of 08 so accurately. It sat right on the New York Stock Exchange's Mars. In 1965, Saturn opposed Uranus. This is where the stock market was. In 1982, this is where the stock market was.
All right.
We had a 16-year bear market. It made new highs several times. Every one of them failed until 1982, when it started another bull run. So I think we're at a period of stagnation, but I think that if Joe Biden and the Congress and everybody agrees and they push through some of this infrastructure bill that I think is absolutely necessary. Remember, when FDR came in, the South had no electricity. There was one state, I don't remember which one it was, but on their license plate, it said, as you know, we say in New York State, the Empire State, on their license plate, it said electricity in every county. And it said that through the 60s and 70s. I don't know about the more recent years, but for decades, because what he did was he flooded the Tennessee Valley with the Tennessee Valley Authority, and he created hydroelectricity, and he put electricity throughout the South.
And that's sort of what needs to happen now with solar energy, a lot of renewable energy.
Right. And another thing is that oil is a dying commodity.
Yeah.
It's going to take a long time, but it's on his deathbed. Yeah. And I was very accurate in my predictions of oil because Pluto rules oil. And I'm going to get into that more in my webinar. I don't want to do it in a few minutes.
When is your webinar?
I'm going to announce it over the next week or so. I have to choose a date and set up the Zoom and the PayPal and all the rest of the nonsense.
Put your information in the chat. I recommend that to everyone and tell us.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Mitchell. We'll come back to you if we have some time.
Great.
And
thank you, Alan. Thank you, everybody. I'm enjoying this very much.
Yes. Well, let's get a little change of pace here with Julian, the numerologist, and then we'll go to Alex and William. I think that, okay. Go ahead, Julian. 2020, that was not a balanced year, was it?
No, not at all. Am I on?
You are on. You're up.
Excellent, excellent. No, it wasn't because, as I said, it's your vision. So it all depends what your vision is, but also you're dealing with the 4, which is the foundation. So you're dealing with not only your own foundation, but you're also dealing with the foundation around you. So in 2020, we're asked to be the architects of our foundation, where now 2020 is all about we're creating our kingdom.
Okay.
And now in 2021, which comes out to a 5, where 2020 is a 4, 2 and 0, 2 and 0 equals a 4. Everything in the universe is number. That number has a meaning, and that's Pythagoras, who's the father of mathematics and numerology. So the 4 now becomes a 5, and it's 2021. So you have the 2, which is all about union and sharing and partnership and relationship. You have the 0 there, which is taking now an energy of having faith and trust. In the 21 or the 2, that's back to how you're relating with people, including yourself. The 1 is you taking charge, and now it's the 5.
Someone said to me, watch out when 2020 becomes 21. You know, when people become 21, they go a little wild. So that's...
Well, it's interesting because the 5 is on another energy. It is the wild child. It's the wild energy. But it's also, if you look at the form of the 5, and this is what I ask people to do, it's an inverted C with a 1 and a 90-degree turn. So that inverted C is your past.
Mhm.
So you're now going to be visited by your body, your mind, and spirit.
Mm.
And it's asking you how you nurture your body. In other words, are you into organic or not? Are you strong with your body or not? What do you feel like about your body? Do you like your body, or are you holding your body?
This is what Sergio was saying in the Toltecs. So you have to go in and work on your interior self.
Exactly. And then your mind. How you feel about your mind? How are you nurturing your mind? Are you doing anything in regards to exercising your mind, expanding your mind, learning more about your mind?
So we needed the foundation of the four as a platform to start to build on that. Is that what
Yes.
Okay.
But we're still now in the inverted C, because now also it's spirit. What do you feel about spirit? And this is all asking you about your past. What are you feeling about all of this from your past, and how you deal with spirit and communicating with spirit? And then the 5 also is about your relationships, family, your loved ones, your lover, your boss, your work, all that. Also, it's about your own self in your profession and how you're dealing with your profession. Are you working, not working? And what are you doing about that? It's about your health, how you're dealing with your own health, and also what is going on. The education, your education, as well as your children, your loved ones, your family, your friends. So within that inverted C is all the energies of all the aspects that are social, economical, as well as physical, mental, all that and more.
Isn't that true every year, every day? No.
No, because in this 2021, it's all about the 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the pause. So what that 5 in 2021 is asking you, you can't take all of this with you. You have to let go of how and what you thought about these aspects of all of this in that C, because you have to lighten yourself in order for you to climb.
Okay.
And just when you think you're free and you've gotten rid of stuff in your life, as well as ideas, philosophies, some people, all that and more, comes the right angle turn.
Mm-hmm.
And that right angle turn is change.
Okay.
That's what is about transformation, transmutation, transcendence. That's progress.
Mm-hmm.
That's also your exponential, transformational playbook. That is the future that is kind of like creeping into our lives now slowly. About what? About Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, about the World Health Organization, about Bill Gates, Melinda Gates, about the UN 2030 Charter, about all of these things. About
what about all that though? So what about it?
it's slowly seeping in, and it's allowing us to look at it. The AI, the AR, also robotics, something called CRISPR that most people don't understand and know about because it's genetic engineering. So all of this is slowly coming in, but at the same time, we're also, as it's coming in, we're now being asked, well, what are you going to do with that? And at the same time, who's in control? Am I in control, or are they in control? And the they means, what is it that they want to do with this new playbook of theirs, with ourselves?
Yeah. And what about the 20s as a decade? Because this is the first year of the new decade.
Well, which is interesting because the 20 in numerology is hidden knowledge.
Oh.
So it's your wisdom, it's your connection with the ancient teachings. So you yourself are now being asked to awaken what? Awaken to the Jedi. Awaken to you being that of the magician, the sorceress, the sorcerer. Awaken yourself to being also the 5 is known as the Hierophant.
Mm-hmm.
The Hierophant. And the Hierophant is the magician and high priestess that's more mature now. And they also, what are they doing? They're sitting. And they're sitting with a staff. And that staff represents the Kundalini energy, the source energy, our source energy, our connection with our source. Not only the God source, but our source in regards to our body, mind, and spirit, our conversation with our inner world, our sensuality, our sensoriality, our sexuality, our androgyny. All this and more is part of that. And at the same time, that 5 is calling and saying, hey, but you know what? The humans as we know it, because that's a program that possibly the powers to be are placing on us, the humans as we know it will not be human anymore. We're calling hybridization. We're calling what Ray Kurzweil talks about in Singularity University in transhumanism. We're talking about the hybrid of the male, female, human being with that of AI.
Or maybe other types of hybrid, maybe galactic hybridization, maybe other types of hybridization, not just machine or AI hybridization.
Well, that's also coming in, because when you go down the rabbit hole, you realize that, wait a second, who's really in control? And where's the galactic confederation? And how do they deal with all of this, with AI, AR, and all this? And then there's a part of me that's going, Alan and company, this is inevitable.
What's inevitable? What?
Everything from the UFO disclosures to everything else. It's inevitable, because in order for us to become part of this confederation, we need to step up and become part of this new hybridization. But the question is, who is in control of this hybridization? Is it the WHO, the World Economic Forum, the new reset, or is it on another level ourselves collectively saying, hey, we're in charge of this, let's see what we can do, and not them being in charge of us and doing whatever they want to do with this V, with what is in the V, and all that and more.
I think that's what a lot of people are saying here. It's an interior thing. One more thing I want to throw out is 2 is the feminine number, 2000s, the 20s. That's the time of the feminine.
It's the feminine, and it's also you yourself connecting with your feminine archetype, and also it's the high priestess. And what I love about the high priestess, she's sitting on a block, and that block is the architect's block. So, and she has sunflowers around her, and the sunflowers represent the sun, as well as nurturing herself with the seeds of sunflowers. Very powerful.
So
what she has, and this is interesting, Alan, she has 2 pillars, and one is black and one is white. And this is the yin and yang, and this is the conscious subconscious, and this is heaven and hell. But this woman is with the scroll partially hidden in her lap, which means more is to be revealed to her. She's right in the center and she's looking straight ahead. She understands that she's in harmony with the light and the dark. We're here to understand how to be in harmony with the light and the dark side, our shadow, our enemy, not allowing that to take over, or even of the light to take over, because we won't be here. So it's for us to understand our equilibrium, our equipoise with mind, body, and spirit.
Great. Thank you, Julian Michaels. Yes, yes, yes. Put your information in the chat. Should we go to William, if you're there, or Alex? Go ahead, Alex. I don't, why, maybe William will come back, but go ahead, Alex. Unmute yourself. Unmute. Unmute.
Hi, Alan. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Let me just pin you. Yes.
Here.
Okay,
well,
thanks for waiting. And
I was taking it in. It was all very interesting.
and does it align with what you're thinking?
A lot of, yeah, there is a lot of alignment there. I'll just add a little bit of a Vedic element to it.
Yeah.
A little more breadth that way in depth. Well, okay, so there's a whole lot going on. There's been a whole lot going on. And sometimes, I don't know if it's just me, but does anyone feel like they kind of went through some kind of they slipped through some kind of crack somewhere and they're in another reality?
That's what this whole year's been about.
Oh my God. And it's exciting, but it's scary. It's a lot of things all at once. What I'll do is I'll start with what kicked into the new year and ended the last year and address the whole Aquarian Age thing, because that keeps coming up.
It does. Okay.
You know, I feel like the way I was trained, first, I was trained more as a Western astrologer with NCGR. And we were taught that the ages are about 2,150 years, give or take. And so if the age of Pisces began around 2,000 years ago, we still have to be fully in the age of Aquarius about another 140 years. That's if they're correct. But just like in natal charts and other charts, we have these cusps, and you have a blending of the energies, and you could certainly see that influx of Aquarian energy. Oh my God, so rapidly. And but I think that the cusp kind of began when Uranus was discovered in the late 1700s. And then we had all these revolutions and scientific discoveries, and America was brand new, and all these revolutions. And then I would say with the world wars and everything, and the 1900s, we're getting closer and closer. Spiritual metaphysics started coming back in a way. The spiritual movement, spiritism with Neptune also. And then Edgar Cayce said, I don't know if anybody's here is an Edgar Cayce fan, but I was a big part of the ARE for many years.
Actually, I have to say, this is where these prediction conferences started, at the ARE.
Oh, well,
yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Well, he said that the age of for me, the marker, where we're on that line, is 1998. But we still are on that. But we're still on that cusp. And
Aquarius, you're saying 1998?
Yeah, that's according to Casey. And he said something about the North Star Polaris lining up, shedding its light in the Queen's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. And that's when that happened. And fascinating stuff. He was an expert on Egypt. And but I think even 1987, that summer in August, when we had that grand concordance, or that alignment of 7 planets, for me, actually, before I even knew about any of this stuff, that was my great awakening. But it happened as a dark night of the soul that just really shook to my core, because I was a staunch born again evangelical Christian, going to church 4 times a week, and I was going to become a minister in a Pentecostal church. And yeah, I look younger than I am. And so it was a big crisis, but it set me on the path that I am in right now. And I don't like when people criticize evangelicals, although I can see when they're a bit too limiting in their beliefs, but that was my upbringing. And So that was another marker, that great alignment in August of 1987. Then you had 1998, you had the Grand Concordance, the big Star of David that happened after that. And now you have this great conjunction of the two biggest planets in our solar system that are visible with the naked eye, Saturn and Jupiter. They're considered the social planets in astrology, bridging between the personal and the transpersonal of the three outer planets that you need a telescope for. Mind you, the ancient seers of the Vedic system actually did see these before they even started writing down these texts for us 5,000 years ago, because they saw us going downwards and then coming back up again now. So they had to start writing everything down, because they wouldn't be able to transmit everything to us like they used to. This great conjunction is another marker. Now, Saturn and Jupiter come together every 20 years anyway, so no huge deal. But there's some interesting components of this that make this, to me, another indicator to let in more of that Aquarian light, ushering us in further, more downloads, more alignment, and calibrating. And so Saturn and Jupiter. So some of the unique features are that you may have heard was that it's on the winter solstice, which doesn't happen every time it happens. And very, very close together. It was just like 10 minutes apart. If you're looking at a degree of 60 minutes, and that's still conjunct, but this was like really close. We had something like that about 400 years ago, but it was too close to the sun, so you couldn't see it. So the impact wasn't as obvious. We also had one about 800 years ago, which was obvious. We had you could see it, and you can, it was very close at the same time. And then 7 BC, which some feel was the correct time of the birth of Jesus, and many call that the Star of Bethlehem. You could see it clearly, and the three astrologers knew that a king, someone royal, was coming to Earth to liberate. And so some are saying that this is like the Star of Bethlehem again, ushering the second coming. And if you take in the more New Agey kind of perspective, it would be more like the Christ consciousness dawning. And ushering us in more fully into the Aquarian age of knowledge.
That was the Saturn Jupiter thing that just happened, was the dawning of Aquarian.
Well, yeah, but I don't think I think we're still on the cusp of Pisces, but that's another indicator, like kind of nudging us in there further, downloading more of that Aquarian light, okay? So that we can integrate it more. If it all happened from one day to the next, it would be almost traumatic. Especially since Uranus rules Aquarius. It's like, you know,
so
even the
more light. The Aquarian age is one where there's more light to the planet, more.
Well, it's a unique quality. It's a unique quality of light. It's the Aquarian vibration or electromagnetic field.
I see.
And we resist new. It's human nature. When we were going into the age of Aries from Taurus, and the Israelites were being freed from Pharaoh, they were in there's a desert period. They were there for what, 40 years? It's uncomfortable when you go through that transition. And sometimes we look back and we long for the old days, the simpler days. So what did they do? They made a golden calf, which symbolizes Taurus. They wanted to go back. And Moses said, absolutely not. And so then we went into to Aries.
Is that sort of what happened this year? You know, we're in the desert, right?
Yeah. And I like how the Toltec brother was saying that we have to just, it's about going within. I mean, we always know as spiritual folk, we have to go within, but now it's like, you have to, if you want to stay sane and happy and prosperous in the true sense, even if some people are prosperous, have a lot of money, but they don't feel prosperous. True prosperity is an inner thing as well. And it's kind of like the Great Awakening now, and it's a bumpy ride unto it, but it's in the bigger picture, it's the best thing that ever happened. These are the best of times and the worst of times. As I'm quoting, I call her Esther Hand. I like how she interprets things. But back to the Vedic, they use these, they're constellation based for their signs, whereas in the Western, we're tropical based, and we are inspired by the constellations, but it's seasonally based. So for me, a planet being in a constellation tells me of the essence of what's really happening. And then when you look at the Western part, adding to it gives it more information as to how it comes through, like the energy, the style of expression. So to me, they're both very valid, East and West, yin and yang, male and female. And so they have, so the great conjunction is actually in, now we know it to be 0 degrees Aquarius, which is another marker. That's why I said it was also not just the unique features. Another unique feature is that it's in Aquarius. Both entered Aquarius almost at the same time and conjuncted at 0 degrees, a definite herald of the new age. However, in the constellation of a Capricorn still. So that's why we're still on that cusp. So we're becoming more and more aware of sustainability, how we're all in this together. It's one planet. You know, the universe didn't make countries. We don't have these divisions on the, when you look at Earth from outer space, you don't see like, oh, that's where that country ends and that country begins. That's our creating. And so we're gonna become much more globalized. And so they have these like mini constellations within the constellations, and those are called nakshastras or asterisms or lunar mansions. And the lunar mansion that this great conjunction occurred in is Uttara Ushada. They use Sanskrit terminology. And this is called the universal star. And Abraham Lincoln, interestingly enough, had his moon there. And they're more lunar based in the east. So, you know,
So what does it mean though? What does that, how does that in?
Okay, so the universal star, the quality of Uttara Ushada is humanitarian, brotherhood, but it also has, it's very Saturnian as well. So it's success over time. I wrote here, it's also called the Star of the Latter Victory. So if you persevere with patience, Saturnian quality of patience, then you'll get the victory that you're seeking, the breakthrough, everyone, we can all hold hands and say, yes, the Aquarian Age is here, but this Saturn, well, I'm not gonna go ahead of myself. Okay, so Jupiter Saturn conjunction in Uttara Ushada is very promising of something wonderful, but we're in the desert right now. Mm-hmm. And we need to drink of the waters of truth within us. Right now, the nakshastras that both Saturn and Jupiter are moving into right now is called Shravana, and it's symbolized by an ear. I have big ears, you can see. And that's about listening within, internal, because the news, I mean, I'm not gonna go as far as saying all news is fake news, but there is a lot of propaganda. Our leaders, our religious leaders, we have to go within because we're hearing so many conflicting messages. And through meditation, listening to the silence, and even music right now, revaluing what the importance of music. Edgar Casey said, music is the bridge from here to the others of the higher. So it's important to listen because we're not listening to each other. I mean, we are, but in the world, everyone is like, we have the truth. You're the bad guy, we're the good guy. And we need to end that, especially now.
That's always been true though. That's always been the case.
Right, but now it's so polarized to the point where it's almost gonna feel like we're gonna have two governments.
Well, it already feels that way, doesn't it? So how do we heal that? How do we change that?
It's gonna get more intense. Well, it's through the internal. Like Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. We're gonna have to be it. We can't mold other people. We have to just show through, we have to actually live it. And how do you do that? If you don't know who you are, you're just gonna go through the motion. Mm-hmm. So it has to be authentic in your own way, which is very Aquarian. But we're not out of the Capricornian woods because the stellium that's gonna happen in early February in Aquarius is still in the constellation of Capricorn.
What stellium is that? What's lining up?
Well, okay, so we have, I wrote them down. Okay, we're gonna have a new moon, February 11th. Mm-hmm. That's the sun and the moon conjunct with a Mercury retrograde. So just when we think we're moving forward with this Aquarian energy, Mercury's like, wait a minute, let's fact check everything. Let's check this again. Is this all accurate? Mercury retro in Aquarius, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pallas Athena, which is a large asteroid. Now we're going to be using the asteroids more because we're integrating the divine feminine. The Aquarian Age won't be about the feminine, it'll be about balancing the two. So it'll be the male and the female because Aquarius is not exactly a feminine sign, it's about equality. And because we've been too lopsided. And so I think that more women are going to be coming into power. I think Kamala Harris, can you still hear me? Wait,
can
I
still
don't.
hear you, but let's not screen share just yet. Let me just take,
Okay.
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 We'll get
I
to you
think
soon.
other.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
You can still hear me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're
Okay.
good. Yeah.
I think Kamala
Just
Harris is
another
one
few minutes.
example.
Yeah.
How
What's that? Kamala Harris will what? You said?
I think is an example of integrating of the feminine into government. And in fact, she might, I don't want to say this, but she might become our next president eventually, because, you know, you've heard of the Indian curse that happens with the Saturn conjunction every 20 years. We've had 8 deaths, I think, 8
But
presidential
it
deaths.
didn't happen with Obama. I thought that broke the curse. Or
Okay,
was it,
so
was it Reagan?
wait,
Yeah.
no. Reagan had an astrologer, by the way. His wife was so into astrology.
Right.
So they tried to assassinate him. There was an attempt, but he did survive. And then Bush, I believe it was Bush.
2000. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. A grenade was thrown at him and he was supposed to die, but it didn't detonate. So I think the curse is starting to lift, maybe.
Okay.
But I don't know. And so we'll see, because Biden is getting up there and he's under a lot of stress. I don't know if you remember the last conference, I said, whoever wins this election, I actually feel sorry for them, because they're gonna regret being president, whomever it's gonna be. And so he might not make it. I even thought that Trump would not make it to the end. But what I think that might mean is that he won't. Most people get reelected if they don't do too. I think that the death card that came up when I did the tarot for that, and his astrology was, you know, he wasn't going to have 2 terms. However, I think the karma, brought him there. So I don't think it's fully fulfilled yet. I think we need to stop playing the blame game, even though he's the agent for a lot of this karma, and unlikable in ways. But I think his role was to bring up the shadow so that we could heal it. So we had to acknowledge it to heal it.
Right.
And so I don't think he's going to go away very quickly, even if he's removed. I think he's going to use his voice to still be an agent of that division, so that we can heal it. Because I think we were in denial about how racist we are. There still is systemic racism, and how homophobic and sexist and stuff. And it's not about, oh, these guys are the good camp and the bad camp. It's really not about that. You can find corruption and shadow in all camps and light.
Right.
But back to this conjunction, you know, if we don't want quick changes overnight, we're relying on our inner beings for that peace and well-being, and we're trying to be not dualistic and very loving. And just today, I was in a store and getting something I needed to get, and the guy was taking a lot of time with the guy behind the counter, and I just said, I just have a quick question, and I actually wanted to get a stand for this phone for this purpose. And so he was very nice about it. And somehow, I don't know how it came up. Oh, when I was done, because both the customer and the worker were very helpful to me, I said, God bless. Well, for me, God is the universe. And the guy, as I was just about to leave, the customer said, interesting that you said that. And I turned around and walked back. I said, why? And a whole conversation ensued about how we can, as we start to see the divine within ourselves and in each other, we start to come together. And I said, yes, that's what's going to heal this nation and this planet.
So you think this year is going to be about that healing, possibly? Or
yes, but it's kind of like picking up the debris. It's like we had a huge earthquake, and now it's picking up everything and reestablishing. So it's not going to be pretty for a while, but we'll have a little more hope, especially if we're going in. A lot of people who are not inwardly oriented are still going to be kind of freaking out. But then that's where you and I and all of us come in as the healers who are a little more awake. We can guide them and show them if they're ready for that. Many are not ready because they're building the golden calf again because they're tired of being in the desert.
But it does look like a better year than what you predicted last year, which was
a little bit. But because of Mars conjuncting Uranus in Taurus, but in sidereal Aries, which feeds Martian energy even more, that's impatience and aggression and wanting to just, we're done with this already. We want to go, I don't want to wear my mask anymore. I don't want to do blah, blah, blah. Or I want the truth, because there's like a lot of covert, we're not sure what's 100% truth here.
Right.
People are going to get really, those who are fear-based are going to get very aggressive. Mars has been in Aries for a bit in the sidereal Vedic system, and it's conjuncting Uranus on the inauguration date exactly, and Uranus is stationing that day, so it's not moving forward or backwards. In stubborn, not moving forward or backwards Taurus, so it's like and so people are going to demand justice and demand this and demand that, and nothing's really going to come out of it. It's going to be like a wild card. So some people even feel like we're going to have two governments at once going at the same time,
Right.
even if it's not in an official way. It's very interesting time, very interesting time. So there is that agitation, and I think there will be a lot more strife and violence in the streets and war worldwide. Some people are even trying to instigate a civil war here. I'm an optimist. I don't think it's going to get to the level where we're going to completely divide. I think people like us are going to be helping people to stay united a little bit.
Well, okay.
But with Taurus, you know, money, the finances, agriculture. But with Aries, the constellation of Aries feeding that, it's going to be very aggressive and unstable. I think the market's going to go up and down. I think there will be some highs though, and I'm not a market specialist, so get in tune with those who know that, because I think you can really.
Mitch was really good about that.
Yeah.
Well, is there any last thing you want to say? Any major prediction?
Well, okay, so Saturn, so this whole stellium that I mentioned in early February, in the sign of Aquarius, but in the constellation of Capricorn, is, let me just see what I have here.
Okay, because
so it's the later victory. So it's like we have to hold tight because there's a lot of energy. It's like a combustion here. Right. And as long as we don't want quick results overnight, we're going to get there. We're having our awakening. All this discomfort is so that we could realize deeper truths and get in touch with who we really are and why we really came here. And so this whole stellium is going to kind of activate things. But the Saturn, but one of those planets in the stellium, now all of them are squaring Uranus, its ruler, in Taurus and also Aries. Saturn is one of them, and it's squaring Uranus. That's like a bigger marker for like the theme of the year, so to speak, how it plays out. So you're going to have the establishment and the progressive even more polarized, but also with the awareness that they do have to talk. They have to listen to each other a little bit to get some solutions. Otherwise, it's a perpetual war. And so this is part of a synodic cycle that began in 1988 when they joined Saturn and Uranus.
Well, that does. Okay. No, do you have
and so now we're at the third quarter square, getting ready for next conjunction in 2032, which some even want to call a golden age. I won't go that far, but we will have made some big breakthroughs that feel a lot more Aquarian, more sustainability, agriculture, and all those and things like that. So right now, I would just say brace yourselves, fasten your seatbelts, try not to go to extremes in your conclusions about everything. Stay in the moment, go within, and listen to the voice that knows everything and that is living everything in oneness love.
Well, thank you, Alex. Alex, put
There's much more, but you can find me on Instagram at premalex9 if you want and have any questions.
But maybe we'll have a little more time to come back to everybody. Okay. Thank you for all that. You're
welcome.
Great again. It's always great to have a Vedic presence there.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Now, because Mars is extremely strong right now and very activated, and because Saturn is also very dominant, if you're into the whole Hindu Vedic perspective, Hanuman represents devotion to Rama, devotion to God or love. Right. And so just going within, becoming devoted to your own inner truth in love. You can chant Om Hum Hanumate Namaha. You can go on YouTube, look up Hanuman mantras, do a 40-day discipline, or on every Tuesday. Hanuman's one of the few energies that is said to has the power to mitigate Saturn's.
Put that in the chat, okay? That would be great. Thank you, Alex. But put it in the chat so people have it written there. Okay, we're going to William Stickevers. Thanks for your patience, William. And What do we have here? We
Well,
can't
I'm
hear
going to
you.
start off where I
Yeah,
left
yeah.
off this time last year, that we're in the middle of a massive collective psychospiritual death rebirth process. And I think the main theme, what I'm hearing from many of the astrologers, and in different words and different ways of them articulating this, is be part of the breakthrough, not part of the breakdown. That's what we're seeing, the breakdown, the decay,
Very
before we have that death transformation process, which we're now right, we just entered. Can you hear me? Is everything good?
Yeah, yeah, everything's good. Maybe Amy, could you mute everyone until we finish, except William? Okay, go ahead, William.
Okay, so I'm not going to venture too much into what has just transpired, but everyone's touched upon on the Jupiter-Saturn synodic progression conjunction. Historically, these type of conjunctions that when they shift from one element to another every 240 years, they have attracted considerable attention as celestial omens. Historically, they correlate with significant land developments, significant landmark developments in history. And they often indicate years, seminal periods. So we just had it. We'll be going through it all through 2021. And it's going to correlate with development of massive re-engineering, a new sense of national identity. This also works on a global level. It's going to correlate with the development of political, economic, financial, educational revisions and social revisions. And this strongly correlates with, it represents really the process of method where we see some major reconfiguration in terms of the global economics, in terms of finance. And the fact that it's in Aquarius has to do a lot with, with this constellation of Aquarius, in which it's occurring is correlated with what I am calling the fourth industrial scientific social revolution.
I just want to say the 1961 date of that alignment was a major year of change. It birthed the 60s back in 61.
Yeah, so it correlated, the 61 alignment correlated with the emergence of the Uranus-Pluto square at the time of the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in 61. And remember, it was really 61, 62 when the countercultural revolution really took off.
Yeah.
And that one, okay, so this one going forward, this is much more powerful than what happened in 1961 for many reasons, because we're starting a new 240-year period. And if you just go back 240 years, bang, to 1841, what was the beginning of? It was the beginning of two things. It was the beginning of the first industrial revolution, women's rights, the civil rights movement. But more importantly, it was the beginning, the emergence of America, the United States, as a world empire. And so when you see empires go through maturity, they go through a maturity phase. So now we are at that transition, what you would call adolescence to psychological adulthood as a civilization and as the empire, as the world leading empire at the moment. And will probably remain that way from what I see, although there is going to be a serious threat to that position. Now, one of the things about Aquarius, right, because it correlates with this fourth industrial revolution we are entering, it's very much connected to the principles of modernization. We're moving from a manufacturing society to an information society, a knowledge economy. We're going to see upgrading, modernization and automation using AI. We're going to see a restructuring we're going to see a new political progressive movement from the grassroots. This is not the radical liberal agenda that we see now in Congress. This is going to be a completely different thing. This is the seeding moment of it. We're going to see major reforms and reformers emerge. We're going to see wireless power, wireless technology. We're going to see cybernetics. We're going to see the rise of social equality. What we really have now, more so than we have racial inequality, we have social inequality and wealth inequality at a level even greater than in 1841. And that is the main driver that is dividing us. It is not racial inequality. That's just a front by the radical left trying to project something in order to get a position and to win in an election. What we really have is a problem where advancements in society are going to occur and have been occurring will accelerate and intensify at such a level that in order to maintain the structure of society, they're going to have to move towards universal basic income for everybody, because we are ultimately becoming a technocracy. So over the next 20 years, the seedings and foundations of a technocracy that's going to be radically different, that's going to be multicultural, that's going to be much more community centered, that's going to be much more alternative cultured in its emphasis. It's going to end in innovation, exploration, space exploration, right? And we're going to see a reemergence of the principles of liberty, equality, fraternity, like we saw it back in the time of the American and French Revolution. So there's a lot more I could say about it, but what we're getting here, what I'm getting at here, is that we are going to see, innovation of new systems and technology that will emancipate and empower human civilization to a more compelling future. But it will be extremely disruptive, and is an emergence of a free-thinking liberty movement. Very, very much what we saw in the founding fathers with this country is going to emerge. It's going to be a second revolution in this country, a political revolution.
When is that? Revolution. When do you think? And that
starting is now. It started actually today. It actually started today.
Today,
right? Well, it started. It started what, 3? I don't have the exact
time. And this is the Aquarian movement. This is the.
This is the Aquarian movement. No, this is. We're going to see the seeding movement between now and 2041. So okay. This country, America 2.0, is dead. America 3.0, and the foundations of it will emerge between that time. And remember, in 1841, the United States was a middling power. It wasn't even a world power. And in 1841, Britain was the world dominant power. And then the United States in 20 years began to challenge that position. So we're going to see that play out between the US and China, right? And on top of that, you don't have just a typical Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. You have a Jupiter-Saturn-Pluto alignment. So when that alignment occurred, Pluto was nearby. The last time we saw that was in 1685. And that was a time we saw the beginning of the collapse of the high medieval age. We see the beginning of the middle ice age. So we're going to global cooling, not global warming. We're going to see an acceleration of global uncertainty. It's already begun. Look at where the global and economic political uncertainty index is at. So we're going to see an acceleration, intensification of social injustice, with the middle class struggling to remain relevant. The consequences over the past 20 years since the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, now the consequences are coming to a head. We're going to see the consequences of extreme wealth and privilege on society by the financial political class come to a head. The consequences of excessive greed in the markets and central bank policies come to a head. We're going to see populism and extremist populists. We're going to see a dramatic rise and fall of power of corporations, institutions, markets, businesses, and we're going to see a major collapse of the political class on both sides of the spectrum. I predict in 2022, both the Republicans and Democrats will be totally wiped out and devastated. We are going to see something that's never happened. And there was a cleansing event that actually occurred in the 1840 elections. And that was the rise of Abraham Lincoln, which started in 1841. And to his rise to presidency in 1861, we are going to see the next party. We're going to see the next leadership emerge. It is not Joe Biden. I'll talk more about that in a minute. All right. The consequences of excessive greed in markets and bank policies, the theme of destruction of capital and debt is going to take place this year. The creative destruction process of capital markets and businesses is going to take place. Themes of political high drama, international intrigue that results in currency wars, trade wars, foreign policy crises, and possibly even shooting wars is going to come to a head this year. The consequences and proliferation of deep penetration of the global surveillance state at every area of life and is going to come to a head this year. And the consequences of lemon socialism, a term referring to the state support of weak or failing businesses, too big to fail, too big to jail. The consequences this year are coming to a head. The consequences of zombie banks, zombie financial institutions, zombie companies on the S&P that have a net worth of zero, but continue to operate by implicit or explicit central bank monetary or fiscal support is coming to a head this year. and crony capitalism. We don't have capitalism. We haven't had capitalism since 2008, right? We could argue even further back, but certainly from 2008 on, we have not had real capitalism. So the consequences of crony capitalism, an economic system in which businesses thrive on a return of money amassed through a nexus between the business class and political class, is all going to come to a head. And the consequences of, again, of too big to fail economy theory, right? All of this, these Machiavellian ruthlessness of Wall Street banksters, hedge funds, private equity funds, and distressed debt funds are coming to a head this year. All right. So a lot of things are coming to a head, and the potential for catastrophe is all around us. The potential for catastrophe, because we have this Saturn-Uranus square alignment. It's a 45-year cycle that goes from conjunction to conjunction. It correlates with both right-wing and essentially conservative authoritarian processes, which emphasize extreme political law and order. So we see a clash between we see the emergence of a radical political left and a radical alt-right coming into a titanic clash. We're going to see large-scale infrastructure failures due to the fact that what Mitch brought out earlier, the fact that our infrastructure at every level is degrading and has completely degraded. We're going to see large-scale infrastructure failures, a breakdown of technology at certain areas, collective angst over social injustice and repression. The repression is going to accelerate. It's not going to go away because of Joe Biden. I should put aside Joe Biden. Kamala Harris. Joe Biden is not going to be around long. We'll talk about that. It's Kamala Harris. She is the one. When I got on Coast to Coast in January 2019, what did I say? Kamala Harris was the one to watch. That's a fact. Go look it up. And it relates to also this Saturn-Uranus relates to this a lot of brilliant innovations. Anything that has to do with the fourth industrial revolution, robots, CRISPR, genetic editing, revolutionary breakthroughs through medicine. We're going to see, along with automated cars, flying cars, this is all coming this year. We're going to see Uber and Lyft replace 20% of their workforce with automated AI systems. All of this is connected with disruptive technology, Saturn, Uranus, and that connects with Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, the DeFi markets. We're going to see tremendous scientific, financial, and engineering breakthroughs when it comes to everything connected to this fourth industrial revolution, especially with e-printing, not 3D printing, 4D printing is coming. But we're also going to see a highly dichotomized class confrontation between the liberal and conservative elements in this society. And cooler heads are not going to prevail. I'm sorry, some of you astrologers, you're saying, oh, William, I'm calling it the way I see it. I am calling it the way I see it. And by the way, so by the way, I said Kamala was the one to watch in the Open Center January 4th, right? I did say that
before Biden picked her for vice president.
That's right. So
yes.
It's all about Kamala Harris. Astrologers look at her chart. Forget Biden. He's a has-been. He's not even going to. He's only there to rubber stamp what's going to happen over the next 100 days over the World Economic Summit, which has to do with the collective Great Reset. That's the name of the conference that's going to happen in Singapore on May 18th.
So what does Kamala Harris's chart look like for?
Well, I'm not going to go into that to be on the scope here. I want to get to what I see.
All right, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yes,
we're seeing, we're going to see a lot of suffering due to, look, there's going to be a lot of suffering. Look, Saturn Uranus is like a suspense thriller. So someone who writes thrillers for a living would have a strong Saturn Uranus component. We're going to have a very sense of tension and montage, suspense thrillers, unexpected and clear-cut dramatic turning points this year. It's going to seem like, whoa, it's sort of like a Woody Allen film where he has like 5 film, like a montage, but they're loosely connected, and then it seems to be an unexpected break in the narrative. We're going to have like that type of thing, interrupted finales, right? We're going to have just a lot of unexpected, all right, themes of revolutionary conflict between authority and insurrection, the unexpected and explosive overturning of oppressive and oppressed situations. And we're going to see, we're going to see a new news. We're going to see a new media emerge. We're going to see a collapse of the old media. Believe it or not, when Joe Biden takes the oath of office and Kamala Harris will soon take over, we're going to see the CNN that whole thing begin to collapse. It'll do just the opposite of what they think. We're going to see an unexpected loss of freedom, financial freedom, because it's going to implement capital controls. And we're going to see we're going to see a number of things. Now, in terms of the stock market, I've been, doing a lot of this type of work now since 2007 on, and I did an analysis of the entire stock market from 1885 to present day to today. And this is the Dow Jones. If you take the Dow Jones and you go back from that period, right, you could see that the Saturn-Uranus square aspect, which is going to happen this month. This is 2021. This was 2019. This is 2009. Note here with the opposition that the stock market really took a dump. And then it started coming back. Then we hit a high earlier this year, right? We hit a high earlier, actually last year in 2020. We hit a high somewhere around February. That correlates with this. Now we're going into the square. And what it's the level of uncertainty, the volatility, the markets are going to go extremely bearish. And remember, the stock market's up 63% from the March lows, with the world total stock market cap over the years now at 100.5 trillion. And not only is that a gigantic number, but more importantly, at the beginning of 2020, before anybody even knew what COVID was, even before the Chinese let on to the world that something disastrous was happening, which we talked about last year, the global market was 80 trillion. And then it jumped up 25%. But at the same time, the earnings of the companies outside of tech continue to collapse. And so it's not the economy, it's the central bank liquidity, stupid, because it is the global liquidity proxy, right? As the macro indicators, and these are the fundamentals of the market. Companies make money, are they profitable? What are their sales, right? Price to earning relative to the overall economy. They continue to decline. The S&P continues to go up, right? The global liquidity, they injected $14 trillion to prop this up. It's an extend and pretend situation, And that's why I say the potential of catastrophe, especially if you're retired, if you're a baby boomer, if you got a pension fund, if you got a parent with a pension fund, they're all in trouble, big trouble, all right? And look, this just came out today, right? This is from hedge funds, which are asking, what do you think are the biggest global risks to 2021? They did not have something listed out like this last year. But now the hedge fund guys are more worried than they were at the beginning of 2020. At the same time this is all happening, the dollar is plunging nonstop since the election. That means the whole world is starting to dump our dollars. Even though they desperately need dollars, we're seeing the use of the dollar worldwide to diminish, and the dollar continues to tumble against its fiat peers. Meanwhile, while all of this is happening, we're seeing the velocity of money. So it's not, look, people would say, what is inflation? Inflation is, oh, well, the more they inject into the money supply, that implies there will be higher inflation. No, that is not inflation. I know that's what they say on Wall Street. The real rate of inflation determines how much money is passing from one person to the next. If you pay me for this lecture and I end up using some of that money to pay my bills, that is a certain turn or velocity of money. And what has happened is they inject more into the system. And as the stock market keeps going up, and as the dollar keeps going down, and as the Saturn-Uranus comes into its square alignment, along with this creative destructive principles that happens with economies, when you see Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto triple conjunctions, historically going back, look at the 1981, folks. 1981, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto within a few degrees away, the Soviet economy collapsed. That's right, it completely collapsed by 1982, from 1979 to 82. What's happening now? The velocity of money in the United States is lower than it was than at the peak of the Depression in 1933. That is a fact, and that is setting us up for a black swan set of developments are unfolding, hidden in plain sight. Extraordinary events, big events. When you see a powerful convergence of planetary alignments, along with these secular conditions and historical conditions, then they can invoke an outlier event that affect and trigger a series of cascading events that culminate and trigger a black swan event.
Didn't
We're
you
gonna
say
see those.
2020 was a black swan event?
Right. We're going to see another set. We're going to see, notice I only had one black swan. I only had one black swan last time. Now look at all the black swans coming, right? So we're going to see a continuation, acceleration, and mutation of the second coronavirus wave and a third coronavirus wave. We're going to see U.S.-China trade war escalate. I mean, it's a lot of people are like, so what? You know, the inflation bond crash, so what? Inflation, Chinese credit tightening. They'll say these things, but we're going to see a combination of EU sovereign debt funding, EU disintegration, Eurozone deflation breakdown, China debt defaults, US fiscal cliff issues. All of these are going to culminate. All of these are culminating. And that's what I'm saying is that we are surrounded by a flock of emergent black swan events. And these events can include earthquakes and other natural disasters, collapses of large buildings, bridges, unexpected arrest of high-level officials, coup d'etats, soft coup d'etats, like what we just saw with this election, and hard coup d'etats, like with a military takeover, military defeats, military and financial collapses.
But it can also be things we have no idea about at this point. Like no.
That's right. That's right. You're totally right. I'm just trying to say I'm only touching on a.
No, I know. I appreciate that.
And that can go into the UFO thing, which I'll go into in a minute. But I want to get to Bitcoin. Okay. I need to address the astrological community continues, especially the financial community, continues to be bearish on Bitcoin. It's a bubble. It is not a bubble. I am an IT engineer. I am an IT engineer since 1996. I was in the industry for 20 years, worked in Silicon Valley. You know that, right? And I'm also an astrologer, and I've been studying this stuff. And I was doing Bitcoin before anybody was doing it. In fact, you and I had a discussion back at the bathhouse, the Russian bathhouse, about getting into Bitcoin, I believe, around in 2011. But
I should have done that. Thank you for that.
Right. But the point I'm trying to make is when I went on Coast to Coast, and I had a discussion with George Noory, and Bitcoin was only 3,400 around March, right? All right. I went on Coast to Coast and I said, no, Bitcoin's going to 40,000 and gold is going to 14,000. Guess what happened? So that was in, right? We're now, Bitcoin is at 38,000 today. It's going to hit 40,000 probably tomorrow, maybe the next day. It's moving in that direction. And George was like, William, none of the financial guys are saying that. It's hard for me to buy into it. And I said, George, every time I get on the show, right, it keeps going up because we're in the fourth industrial revolution. There's two reasons. We're moving to a new system of money, a decentralized currency, decentralized finance system. The stock exchange is the dinosaur, and all those guys who are operating from the Monday to Friday, 9:30 to 4:30 is over. That's over with.
So it's not a bubble.
Some people here are laughing, but it is true. And it's going to show itself this year because we are in a fiat currency collapse, which has already begun. It's already begun. We're in the first stage because look what Bitcoin has done to everything else. Look what Bitcoin has done to the NASDAQ, to the S&P, to the 10-year. Everyone keeps saying, but sell the Bitcoin. It's overvalued. No, it's not.
So this is not a bubble then, William, you're saying?
No, it is not. And anyone who's saying that doesn't understand technology like I do, doesn't understand the astrology and the black box systems I created since 2009 so I can keep making accurate Bitcoin predictions, even though the host of Coast to Coast refuses to believe. Because, William, I believe in everything you say except Bitcoin. Everything, the reason you're on this show over and over again, because you've been right, but I can't accept Bitcoin. Look what Bitcoin, when I first went on Coast to Coast, right, around this time, Bitcoin could only buy how much? Could only basically get you through a week's worth of food. Look at it today. Look at what it could buy a car today. And right now, Bitcoin's global the total market capitalization of Bitcoin is actually higher than this. It's actually somewhere around $600 billion. Okay. So 600 billion. This is low. I just posted this about a week ago. Look at the total above ground market capitalization of gold, 12 trillion, right? Look at this. As of today, right? The Bitcoin market capitalization is right now tied with Google. As of today, Google and Facebook, it's right around here. My prediction is this year, it'll blow past Apple's $2 trillion target, and it will move towards a target of, it'll close to a $2 trillion target in of total market capitalization. What does that mean in terms of money? That's 161,000 in Bitcoin at the rate. So if it hits the 40,000, then it goes to 161, then from 161, 285, that type of thing. And guess what? You know, the more as Americans, we just say it's the dollar. You don't know what you're talking about. Bonds are where it's at. The stock market's where it's at. It's not. The Chinese have figured this out. They are launching their first cryptocurrency, digital currency, the DCEP, to take on and become the new world reserve currency, because they know the dollar is collapsing. And for those of you who are astrologically astute, I showed here, I've been showing this for years, and I still get continued skepticism in the astrological community and the metaphysical community who could benefit from this. And I said, this is when the Saturn-Uranus opposition occurred, right? And this is when Bitcoin started moving up. And then we had the next Saturn-Uranus alignment, right? That followed shortly after that. That was the trine aspect. Now we have the square aspect. We're right here. That means the enthusiasm that we're going to go from an institutional investor period, which we're in transition, to the public period. Bitcoin is going to skyrocket and will become the new paradigm. Quote me on this, in 2032, where it will exceed the total market capitalization of gold. It will be somewhere around 15 trillion or higher at that point.
So
and
it's not too late to invest in Bitcoin, you're saying?
No, and you don't see, everyone thinks you have to, well, it's like Tesla, which is going to go to 400, by the way, but you have to buy all of a Tesla stock. With Bitcoin, you can just put in $5 a day or
yeah,
5,000.
you don't have to buy the whole coin. You can buy a bit of a Bitcoin.
Just set up your account to do automatic deductions, whatever you can afford each week. Right? Because it's the new currency system. Everyone's thinking in dollars, especially the astrologers. They're a day late and a dollar short. They're dinosaurs. The problem, no, really, I could say this after 10 years. I'm not just saying this after one day. I said this last year, and everyone said, William, it's going to blow up. It's just a bubble. In fact, people even said to me in the audience, could you talk about something else, William? All right. So here's the thing. We're moving to a decentralized finance system. Bitcoin is decentralized money. DeFi is a general term given to decentralized financial services, such as decentralized exchanges, decentralized money markets, decentralized insurance companies. And its aim is to replace centralized services, centralized exchanges with autonomous AI-driven organizations, blockchain, built on this blockchain, very sophisticated blockchains, where everybody around the world can participate. And there's no middleman. There's no need for a broker anymore. And it's transparent, it's interoperational, it's decentralized, it's free for all services, it's flexible on the user. And doesn't that sound like Jupiter, Saturn, and Aquarius?
I don't know. But anyway, so yes, maybe, yes. But okay, now, do you want to get onto the UFO stuff, or you want to?
No. I want to finish this up.
Okay.
I want to finish this up because everyone thinks this is going to be a good year. This is the black box forecast, taking the USA horoscope. No matter, this is just taking the USA. I purposely put the Sagittarius rising. There's no historical record for Sagittarius rising. Look at a Scorpio rising chart. Look at a chart earlier in the afternoon where we have the time anyway, I digress. But the point is that look at where we're at. This is the day when Biden takes the oath of office. We are in a constitutional crisis. There is a constitutional crisis, the blowback, the hubris that was because there was no inquiry to audit the votes and know for sure who should be president. The blowback is going to split the country in half. And let me tell you, cooler heads are not going to talk. Revolution is brewing. We're going to say the same situation that we saw between 1841 and 1861 come out. It's coming. And while that's happening, we're going to see what's happening in China is just not a trade war, because that trade war can turn into a hot war, because we are on the verge of we are in a Thucydides trap. And every time you had the rising power challenging a ruling power, almost every time except a couple times, they went to war. They went to war. And the reason I could state this is that one of the things I see is very warlike aspects with this Moon Mars Uranus conjunction. The moon is void of course, meaning this administration is not going to end up the way it started, right? That's why I'm telling you, we're going to certainly see Biden will not, it'll be lucky if Biden gets past the first year. And we see Pluto right on the midheaven. This is where there will be a foreign policy crisis greater than COVID and a domestic crisis greater than when we saw the protest in 2020. And the reason I'm so confident of this is that the Barbo-Cyclic Index, and I showed this last year, I said, oh, the index in 2014, it started when Russia annexed Crimea, and everything started breaking down in the world. We saw the British exit, we saw the humanitarian crisis, British, the Catalonia independence, Me Too movement, Trump triggering trade war, all that stuff. And this is where we are today. And this is where all these alignments. The last time we had a 532 drop was when the Roman Empire collapsed and when the Soviet Empire collapsed. That is a fact. Go look it up. It is there. I showed this last year, right? Look what's just happened. I have to update this. Right? Hong Kong crisis, India-China border crisis, stock market crash, global financial crisis, UK to leave EU, Trump impeachment trial, who declares coronavirus pandemic. This and where that was here. Look where we are now. And that's why we are in the fourth turning, where the peanut butter is hitting the fan, and this country right now, the real hardship. This is why I keep saying there's going to be a struggle with real hardship. The survival of the very nation, it will be at stake between now and 2025 when the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction occurs in Neptune. So America is passing through a great gate, a rite of passage of history, commiserate with the American Revolution, Civil War, the twin emergencies of the Great Depression and World War II. That is what we're in now. And so I'm going to talk about this more in detail with the global outlook that I'll be doing. I will be giving more predictions out in that 4-hour period than you'll get from 40 different astrologers at all the major conferences. And I also have a group where I give predictions, forecasts, Bitcoin. I do it all on top of who's going to, political elections, which I do bi-weekly, and I do a Q&A hour on my private group. And I'll answer any questions you have.
All right. Well, thank you. Take it off of screen sharing if you don't mind. And let me just ask Amy of the Open Center where we're at. Amy, can we go a little longer just for some questions?
Oh, yeah, we're about 10 minutes over time, but we can take a couple questions.
Well,
so we
I
can
just want to
wrap
hear
up.
from any astrologers if they have anything. Like Mitch said, it was not to create an argument, but Mitch says it was a bubble. Or Judy, do you agree with some of that? Or Judy, go ahead. What do you think about? You don't want to say anything. That's fine.
No. I had to unmute.
Oh, okay.
Well, I believe that the currency system is going to change. So I think that Bitcoin might be a very large part of it. It's
Right.
just all part of the change happening.
And Alex, this also fits some of what you were saying too, right? You go unmute yourself. Unmute. Yeah. Wait, still unmute yourself, Alex. Alex, unmute. There. Yes, almost. Okay. Wait, we lost you. Mitch, go ahead. Well, Alex, come back, but go ahead. Mitch, what do you have any response to that?
Well, I don't disagree completely with what William said. I think we are entering into a period of massive changes in how we view money and equality on a lot of levels. I still don't trust Bitcoin. I doubt that I ever will. And I think that there are, as I have also spent many, many years studying all of the markets and the currencies and the way that things interact. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. In 1980, the Hunt brothers decided they wanted to corner the silver market. And so they bought 65% of all the silver in America. And the price of silver went from $10 a share, actually $7 a share, to 60, until the FEC came in and they said, well, we're changing the rules. And overnight, the price of silver went down to $10 a share. And if you got out at the right time, you made a fortune. And if you didn't, you lost a fortune. Now, that doesn't mean that silver isn't a commodity that we continue to trade. In fact, it has a lot of uses, much more so than gold does. Gold, I think, is a useless commodity. It is not used. We're never going back on the gold standard, when they would have to make gold $1 million an ounce in order to back the amount of money that we have created in our fiat society. That's not going to happen. In the First World War, they were on the gold standard, and all of the European nations lied about how much gold they had because they had to finance the war. After the war, that was part of what created the Depression of 1920 into 1922.
Right.
So Bitcoin has the capacity to, and all chain, not just Bitcoin, but all of them. And the Chinese are opening them, and banks are taking some of them, and I understand all of that. But just like any bubble, it blows up, and then it has to settle down, and it finds its trading range. Bitcoin is not in a trading range. You saw the chart that William brought up a few minutes ago. Bitcoin isn't in a trading range. It's exploded. That's not a normal commodity. That's not the way things trade. That's the way things trade when everybody jumps in and they want to grab a piece.
That's because we're going through a paradigmatic shift. The smart money, Mitch, knows that this reset is coming, and you're gonna have that president, the new president, rubber stamp whatever they say. They're moving out fast. I talked to all these hedge fund guys. They call me, William, you were right.
I know, William.
They're moving massive amounts of Bitcoin out.
I talk to a lot of hedge fund guys too.
But if you are, why are you saying this is a bubble?
No, let him answer, William. Let him go ahead, Mitch.
Because it is a bubble, and because I try not to let my personal political feelings interfere with my interpretation, which I think you do.
No, I don't. No, I don't.
I don't agree.
Okay.
And I've listened to what you just.
No, Mitch.
No,
that's not true. You want to say that? That is not true.
Wait, guys.
Doing this. The radical left is doing that.
The radical left is doing this.
Wait. I just wait. We muted. We're gonna see if it's a bubble or not by the end of the year. Wait. Okay. So wait. Everybody's muted. Let me just Mitch. It's okay. Mitch, let me just go to Alex and see what he has to say.
I'll just say that with Uranus and Taurus being challenged by a whole stellium in Aquarius, you're going to have some uncomfortable adjustments with money, and the dollar will be very unstable. And something like Bitcoin and alternative forms of currencies will become more and more appealing. So if it is going away, I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I think it's going to keep escalating from what I can see.
It is not stable, and it will never be stable.
Okay.
Saturn Uranus kind of shakes things up. The last time we had Saturn Uranus at the Great Depression in 1929, 1930. So we're going through something similar, but I think I'm pretty optimistic regarding Bitcoin. I think it's going to be here for a while.
Let me wait 1 second. Judy has to say goodnight. Judy, you have anything final to say before you say goodnight? And you can unmute yourself.
Just thank you for having me, and
thank you.
Good luck to everybody in 2021 and beyond. Thanks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Okay.
Thank you,
We'll get away from the Bitcoin discussion because you don't know if it's a bubble yet. Jenny, do you have anything to say before we close? Unmute yourself.
No, we'll find out, we're going to find out.
We will find out.
We'll find out soon, because William is right about the reset. They are having this conference. Something's up. Not too many people know about it.
Wait, there is a question for William about the UFO issue. William, do you want to address that? Unmute. Yeah, go ahead.
So, I didn't get to that, but
yeah.
So when you have Saturn Uranus aspects, right, along with these big alignments, we normally see major disclosure events. We're also going to see a tremendous amount of UFO activity. And this is going to cause it's sort of like that scenario that Richard Dolan talked about that he co-wrote in 2010, where the plausible deniability is going to break down this year shortly after that report. Here's the problem. The Biden administration, and I've read this is not being politically partisan, is very reluctant to move forward. They're going to actually try and push back what Trump was pushing for with the disclosure. I know you don't like him, but he did push that forward. And Biden and Harris are going to pull it back, even though that report's going out. However, there's going to be a series of developments that are going to shake the foundation of the administration's position on this that is going to it's going to create some Senate panel hearing, and something explosive is going to emerge. That's all I can say.
That is the big COVID bill. In 180 days, the
Correct.
Congress has to talk about
Correct.
the UFO situation, and that's
Correct.
been in the papers. It's right at the very end of this $5 trillion bill. They shoved that in as part of it.
The reason they don't want to do it partly, and this is
Yeah.
not being anti-democrat,
Yeah.
is because any aspect of any development or any further disclosure will be disruptive to an already fragile political system, to a new administration, to the whole, believe me, things are really fragile everywhere. Look at what's happening in New York City, right?
Right.
So they don't want this. So Biden, who's really, he's more of a centrist conservative, centrist in terms of the Democratic Party, and is going to want to pull it back. And this is where you're going to want the forces going forward, Uranus and Saturn, the forces, let's go back, let's pull it back to Obama. That's the policy, and we're going to see a collision.
Okay. Thanks, William. Mitch, you have any final words without talking about the bubble that you want to leave people with about what we should look for?
Alan, I think that we are definitely on the verge of some major changes. There's no question about it. I don't disagree with everything William said. I don't mean to make that seem that way.
Right.
Just that William and I have had disagreements in the past.
Well,
And I have no problem with those. I honestly don't. I
okay.
think that he's right. I think Biden is definitely a centrist. I think that's what America wanted at the moment. Whenever we are a centrist nation, when we go too far to the left, we pull it back. When we go too far to the right, we pull it back. And so that's exactly what happened. And the ultimate outcome of what's going to happen economically, well, that's beyond any of us from deciding. Warren Buffett, I know he's an older guy and he thinks old style. He knows he wouldn't put 10 cents into Bitcoin.
Well,
That doesn't mean he's right. It doesn't mean he's right. I'm just using that as an example.
All
And
right.
I also talk to a lot of hedge fund guys who feel, some of them feel the same way that William does, and many of them don't. I'm not concerned with that in the long run, but I am concerned with what happens to our country and what happens to the world. And we are at a point, definitely a precipice, where if we don't figure out some way to balance and to find a central, a joining, the whole thing is going to go into the you know what.
Okay, we do have to wrap up. Julian, any final words there? Unmute. Okay, wait, go ahead. One more, wait, unmute. Go ahead. Okay. No. Yes.
Yes. Okay. The secret of the 5 in 2021 is you're a time machine. And being a time machine, you're able to connect not only with past, present, future, but globality, the global past, present, and future. You're the seer, you're the Jedi, but be careful of the revenge of the Sith. Be careful of you being manipulated, mind controlled, or whatever it is that can happen in order for your powers to be taken away. The two is all about union, but to bring union, you need parties coming together. There is so much division taking place, not only in the Democrats and Republicans, but also in the whole technocratic technology boom that's taking place. Again, there's so much control that is on the way. And in regards to the financial markets and our finances, they want us to be put into a monthly universal plan where they're feeding us X amount of dollars for us to survive. So there is so much going on so many levels, not also in these next year. Also, Biden has such a criminality around him that there's no problem that he might be arrested. Bless
All right. That's some people say that. Okay. Thank you, Julian. Alex, did you have any
What
fun?
nonsense that is, Julian. Absolute
All right.
nonsense.
Everyone has their
And
own
Biden
opinion.
is going to get arrested.
I don't think he'll be arrested
We
either.
have a corrupt and illegitimate administration coming to power. I'm going to stick to that.
Oh, you think that Trump won the election, William?
Okay.
Yes,
Do
he
you
did.
believe that?
He did.
Oh,
Wait,
God,
wait,
I've
wait,
had
wait.
enough.
And the
Thank
proof.
you
wait,
all
wait,
very much, and
wait,
Happy New Year.
Wait. Okay. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. I think, I had a problem with Trump myself, but other people didn't. Wait, let's wrap it up. Alex, any final words?
All right. Well, Uranus in sidereal Aries was also there in the last World War and the Third Reich. So we got to keep in mind that we have to avoid extremes in our ideologies and approaches to things. To stay centered, balanced, grounded, and things are going to be shifting at breakneck speed anyway. But if you're centered and grounded in love, you'll navigate just fine, and you'll inspire others. You'll be just fine, and you'll come through to the other side to something a little more comfortable. But right now, just hold fast. There's no replacement for meditations, for eating right, sleeping well. See your acupuncturist. I know a really good doctor if anyone needs one. Chinese herbal medicine. Take care of yourself and take care of each other. That's what I have to say.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for being here today. Thank you. I think it's going to be an exciting year. I think we were coming out of the darkness. We're coming into a new time, as everyone said, and that's what it feels like. We're awakening another level of consciousness. Look for the black swan events that are unexpected, that may be a UFO disclosure. It may be something we have yet to consider, but expect the unexpected is what Heraclitus said, and we can always go for that. And I'm hosting a walk-in conference tomorrow. Go to portaltoascension.org. Look for my YouTube channel. That's New Realities. That's youtube.com/New Realities. I enjoy doing this, and thank you, William, for a great slideshow presentation. Thank you, everyone who's here. I guess Sergio left, but look for his book, The Real Toltec Prophecies. And if anyone has any workshops coming up, just put it in the chat there, because this is a community that we're forming, and we may disagree, but we're all moving forward into the unknown. Thank you, everyone watching here online. Thank you, Amy, for hosting. Thanks, the Open Center. This is the 5th year in a row. I hope people got something out of it. You can email me at newrealities@earthlink.net and let me know what you got. And there'll be a recording of this. So really, it was a long, powerful night. And what do we have there, Alex? What is that?
Pulled one tarot card for the year ahead. We're rebuilding our foundations, the Four of Wands.
I think everyone is in agreement about that. Yay.
Thank you,
Thumbs up.
Alan.
What, Lynn?
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I enjoy doing this. And yes, there's a hermit card there. Anyway, yeah, this is great. We're going to pick this up next year. Who knows what shape we'll all be in, what shape the planet will be in. I think it'll be a time for rebuilding. Yes, we are here to rebuild the inner self, the inner awareness. And I always enjoy doing this because it's always something new and unknown that we're looking for. We're moving into the unknown. So expect the unexpected. Here we go. Thank you. Thank you. And good night. Okay.
Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you, everybody. Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Very stimulating conversation. Food for thought.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. A lot to think about. Look at the economy. I think take everything you've heard here, take it and interpret it in your own way. I mean, there's no rights or wrong. Only time will tell. So this is where we are. Thanks.
Good night.
You can close.
Thank you.
William, I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to talk to you.
That'd be great. I look forward
right.
to it, Julian.
All right.
Thank you.
Blessings. Blessings, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody, for participating.
Thank you.
You can close
Say
the room,
hi,
Amy.
everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great stuff, Alexander.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.